the people who he seems to call regime remnants, or people who were in any kind of way involved in the regime, that are being arrested or killed now. I don't think it's a fair judgment to forgive his past so easily and to just accept it. So I think the lift of the sanctions it's far too early to celebrate it. Far too early to celebrate it, because there's still so much bloodshed. And it's disappointing considering we've all been waiting for the lift of sanctions for so long. I just do believe the timing is just a bit off, considering no one within Syria and outside of Syria has done anything about what happened on the coast.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. If you enjoyed today's programme, you can listen to the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Good morning, Manitoba, and welcome to a special edition of CBC's Information Radio. We are live on location in the Arm of Lacabani. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube, wherever you're watching. And if you're watching, you're going to get quite a sight, because my studio today is the Carkland Farm. This is a 4-generation farm here on Wendigo Road, and you might know the name Wendigo Road because it was one of the hardest hit areas in this part of the province and in this particular wildfire that is now listed as under control. But of course, hotspots continue to burn, and across the province we have challenges with fire still. From the deck here, though, what I can see from the front porch is the sun coming up over Manitoba, and it's promising some hope that the people in this area certainly need after what they've been through. We're going to hear some of those stories today. We're going to hear where the people of Manitoba in this part of the province are at, and also what they're thinking about moving forward. So lessons from the wildfire zone as we're live in Lacabani, and thank you so much for the Carklands for inviting us to do our broadcast from here as we were looking for a spot. We will get into the forecast in just a moment. I can tell you the smoke's thick in the air. You smell it as soon as you get up this morning, and the sun does look a little bit orange, so that's not unusual from what we've had this spring. But we do have local smoke warnings. They extend through this Lacabani area up through Thompson, and air quality are going to be an issue in those areas. So our high in Winnipeg, back in Winnipeg, is going to be right around 25 today. It's a little cooler here. It's right around 6 degrees in Lacabani this morning. So we're getting set for the show. Corey Funk's here. Hi, Corey. Corey is, of course, our producer, director on site with us here. Also want to say good morning to Drew and to Reva Carkland, who have us here on the farm this morning. Good morning back at our studio to Brad Lillies, who's your YouTube producer, and to Abby Adeyemi, who will be on the air with us covering weather and is our senior technician. Heather Wells joins us, though, at 2 minutes to 6 o'clock for the latest on fires and other stories with your CBC News headlines.
Good morning. Yeah, Marcy, you mentioned the air quality warnings for southeast Manitoba and special air quality statement for parts of the north. Those wildfires are impacting the air we breathe, and experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in the short and long term. We'll hear more about it. And all eyes are on Ottawa today, where King Charles is going to read the speech from the throne. In Winnipeg, Callum Morrison, a longtime follower of the royal family, hopes Canadians appreciate this historic moment. More at 6:30.
World Report, though, is first.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
The American actor Courtney B. Vance is incredibly accomplished. He's played everyone from Johnny Cochran to Cobra Bubbles in the new Lilo and Stitch movie.
I need to find out what kind of threat we're dealing with.
Courtney will be here to talk about how he thinks growing up in the middle of the 1967 Detroit riots made him who he is today. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Today in Ottawa, there will be pomp, there will be circumstance, and the speech from the throne will be a truly royal affair, full of symbolism aimed at our neighbours to the south. King Charles opens a new session of Parliament in just a few hours. Janice McGregor is standing by for us in Ottawa, waiting for the King to arrive. So, Janice, today is all about messaging. What kind of message are you anticipating in this throne speech?
Angie, because of who's reading this speech and the global audience that brings, every word is going to be weighed for signals, including whatever personal words King Charles shares off the top before laying out his preview of the Canadian government's agenda. Today's also a bit of a civics lesson, a reminder of what makes Canada's system of constitutional monarchy different. In a way, the key takeaway is intended to be the pomp and circumstances. The symbolism is the substance. Canada in a period of transformational change, even the throne is newly designed. Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon was reflecting on that yesterday.
Look, it's a singular occasion, an historic occasion, and it honors the very origins of our country.
Also listening in the room today are going to be several past prime ministers as well. A reminder that while elected governments come and go, the continuity that the Crown represents is part of what makes Canada's democratic institutions so strong.
Now, these are still the priorities of a minority government, so there still will be plenty of opposition to what we're going to hear today, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about Canada's system. It has a loyal opposition. Today's speech, not an edict. Vigorous debates about its contents are going to begin, frankly, before the King's plane even takes off. But one of the challenges is going to be making sure that even as Canada asserts its sovereignty vis-a-vis the U.S., it isn't also sparking sovereignty movements in specific regions of the country. Here's Alberta Conservative Shuvaloy Majumdar.
We want progress for this country on its resource potential, on the potential of the West. I think it would go a long ways in dealing with a lot of the pressure of resentment that we're experiencing in Alberta and elsewhere right now.
Mark Carney wants to, perhaps has to, move quickly in this short spring sitting. Conservatives say if he implements measures consistent with their agenda, they're going to help.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
And CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers the speech from the throne. Join Your World Tonight's Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen of CBC Radio's The House for special coverage. Tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern on CBC Radio, CBC Listen, Sirius, and the CBC News app. One priority we expect to hear a lot about in the throne speech is increasing free trade between Canadian provinces. It's something British Columbia and Yukon are getting a head start on. They signed an agreement last week to work on connecting their electricity grids. As Amelia John reports, the project falls in line with the Prime Minister's goal to make Canada an energy superpower.
BC Premier David Eby and Yukon Premier Ranj Pillay signed the Memorandum of Understanding for the Yukon-BC Grid Connect, calling it a generational investment and a way to boost clean energy supply. Yukon's grid is isolated and sometimes relies on diesel, while BC often has a surplus of hydroelectricity, which it sells. Barry Penner is a former BC Environment Minister and now head of the Energy Futures Institute.
The idea has been bouncing around for at least 2 decades, maybe more. You have to ask yourself, why has it not come to fruition? And that's because it faces daunting challenges, a combination of distance and cost.
Mark Zacharias is an advisor with Clean Energy Canada and says the agreement is timely as the federal government looks to invest in energy initiatives.
And if the U.S. is no longer going to be a reliable customer or a reliable supplier, it does make sense to connect provinces and territories a lot more in terms of the grid.
Penner says it could cost well over $1 billion to connect the BC and Yukon grids, while Zacharias estimates it could take 10 to 15 years to complete. The two premiers say they'll seek federal support and work with First Nations who may be impacted. Amelia John, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says it has begun distributing food to Palestinians, and it has released photographs to prove operations in Gaza are underway. This aid operation is controversial. It's been endorsed by Israel, which says it is trying to keep humanitarian supplies away from Hamas, but it has been criticized by the United Nations and other aid groups. They accuse Israel of trying to use food as a weapon when Gaza is at risk of famine. Well, Russia's defense ministry says its troops have taken control of more territory in eastern Ukraine, and at the same time, it is accusing Ukraine of trying to derail peace talks. Here's Kremlin spokesperson Maria Zakharova. She says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been issuing destructive statements that blame Russia for prolonging the war. Zakharova says Russia is actually working to draft terms for a peace accord between the two countries. Lawyers watching the trial of 5 former World Hockey Junior players say the Crown's job just got harder. The judge in the sexual assault trial has ruled a key piece of evidence inadmissible. The 5 former teammates have all been charged with sexual assault following a Hockey Canada gala in 2018. They've all pleaded not guilty. Here's more from CBC's Karen Pauls.
And Howden down and hurt.
Vegas Golden Knights forward Brett Howden was knocked unconscious and had to be carried out on a stretcher during a game in March 2022.
That is a scary hit.
Whether or not that contributed to Howden's memory loss, as lawyers suggested Monday in court, he's been unable to provide details the Crown was counting on, which is why she's tried so hard, in vain, to get a text message Howden wrote about Dylan Dubé slapping the buttocks of the complainant admitted into evidence.
The Crown has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Dubé was in fact the person who allegedly slapped EM without consent.
Lisa Kelly is an associate professor at Queen's University Faculty of Law, where she teaches criminal law and evidence.
And if the Crown cannot satisfy the finder of fact, in this case the trial judge, the rightful legal outcome should be an acquittal.
Former senior Crown attorney Michael Korstein agrees. Howden's memory gaps and the exclusion of the texts weakens the case against Dubé.
This evidence had the ability to corroborate a very damaging portion of the complainant's evidence. It certainly decreases the likelihood that Mr. Dubé would be found guilty.
Kelly says this trial is a reminder about why it's so important for criminal cases to be tried in a timely fashion before the evidence deteriorates. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Well, despite a rebound last year in venture capital for Canadian startups, investors appear to be growing more cautious. Nearly $8 billion was poured into Canadian startups, but the ongoing trade war with the United States has led to much of that funding drying up. As Philippe de Montigny reports, this could have long-term consequences.
And for that reason, I'm out.
Popularized by shows like CBC's Dragon's Den, venture capital is now harder to come by, especially for early-stage Canadian startups.
We see that the investors don't like uncertainties.
Geneviève Boutillier leads the investment branch of the Business Development Bank of Canada. A new BDC report shows 1/3 of the country's venture capital comes from American investors who might choose to move their dollars to the U.S.
So if Canadian investors don't step in, we are at risk of losing our champions.
The biggest impact of the tariffs is the uncertainty.
Kim Furlong is the CEO of the Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. Her organization's data show less than $1.3 billion have been invested in the first 3 months of 2025, spread out over far fewer deals than in previous years.
What I would love is to see more, for example, of Canadian pension plans who have the ability to write these larger checks, come in the later so that the value at the time of exit goes back to Canadian pensioners and stays in Canada and creates more wealth at home versus leaving the country.
But successful exits have been down in the past few years, with no Canadian companies going public in 2024 and only one the year before. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally for us, how's this for a serenade in outer space? Blue Danube, a waltz by Austrian composer Johann Strauss. He was born June 3rd, 200 years ago. And to mark that anniversary, the European Space Agency will beam this version of the waltz into the cosmos. Within 23 hours, the signals will be heard as far away as NASA's Voyager 1. It's the world's most distant spacecraft, 15 billion miles away from Earth. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, to a very different kind of a soundtrack here. We're sitting on the porch in Lacabani at the Carkland Farm just on Wendigo Road, about an hour and a half northeast of Winnipeg. Good morning. Welcome to a special edition of CBC's Information Radio. In my background, I'm hearing the Sandhill crane and the birds come to life over a strange view. I'm looking at a field here, and it should actually all be black because a lot of it was burned, but there's new life coming up out of the ground. It's almost offensive given what happened here with the wildfires. Our special coverage today from Lacabani means that we're beginning the show. In a moment, we will get to headlines and weather, but we're starting the show bringing you into this area just to give you a sense, Manitoba, of what it felt like driving in here. Have a listen. The sound of removing old dead trees in the fire burned portion of Lacabani. I'm Mercy Marcusa. We're live on Wendigo Road today as we explore where this community is at and what the way forward is going to be after these devastating wildfires. So it's an interesting experience coming out to the Lacabani area. Down a rural road, it's just so quiet. And you can hear the wildlife still. And as you're driving in, green, lush, beginning of spring. And then you turn down the area that leads to Wendigo Road. This is one of the areas where the fire really took hold. And you start to smell it. And beside me on either side of this highway, you can just see the path that the fire took as we steadily get towards some of the hardest hit areas. The trees on the side of the beautiful boreal forest, all of the bottoms just about 8 feet up from the trunk are charred, and yet the tree beyond that, taller, will look healthy, and that of course is because of the height of the flames as they moved at least through this part of Manitoba. So we just rounded the bend on Wendigo Road. This is really where it opens up by the water, and I've not seen anything like this. I mean, this is obviously where the greatest loss of structures was in this area. It's just nothing. Everything's charred. There's stoves standing. There's about 4 burnt out, melted cars back in there. Look at that. Chimney structure just still holding, still standing. That looks very eerie in the middle of a pile of rubble. That should have been someone's fireplace, still standing. Twisted metal everywhere. It smells like wood chips and ash a little bit, like stale ash. Well, this just goes on and on. It just ripped right through here. Look at the trees. Like, they're not even trees. Now we're in an area where it's just like black. Imagine you just put black sticks in the ground. Like, literally black sticks that are maybe 20 feet tall, and that's it. So this part of our province looks different than maybe when you were last here, but so many parts of this province still hold beauty, and it is really living in the people. We're going to meet a lot of those people this morning, of course, as we're mindful that wildfires are still burning in many parts of the province and still here in Lacabani. You know, there's firefighters out putting out hot spots. Let's go to Heather Wells for your headlines on our live show. So I'm in Lacabani. Heather's in Winnipeg at 6:13. Heather, what are your updates?
Well, to another part of the province in the north, an out-of-control wildfire just outside Wabodin has prompted officials there to declare a local state of emergency. Wabodin's mayor, Reg Mead, says the state of emergency gives them time to prepare in case they need to quickly evacuate. We'll hear more from him. And the head of the Assembly of First Nations hopes King Charles' visit to Canada marks a step forward in the relationship between Indigenous people and the Crown. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak met with the King late yesterday in Ottawa. We'll hear from her as well in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. Let's go to Abby now for the forecast. Abby, it's chillier here in Lacabani. I think it was around 6 degrees. What's it like in Winnipeg?
Yeah, 12 degrees in Winnipeg. Across the province, we have smoke and haze in the air, and we are seeing some of it in this part of the province as well. We're looking for a mix of sun and clouds today. We do have the slim chance of a thunderstorm sometime in the afternoon, and winds would come from the south, warming up to 25. And in Lacabani, where you are at this point, 6 degrees I'm tracking. We have that air quality statement in effect due to fires in that region. So if you're having issues breathing, you might want to reduce your time outside. Also for that part of the province, I see that there's a chance of thunderstorms sometime this afternoon. So heads up for that. But across board, the province would have warm weather with smoke in the north and the Interlake region, while Winnipeg will see more like breezy and hazy conditions with that possibility of thunderstorms in the afternoon. Right now, 12 degrees in Winnipeg.
All right, let's check traffic here. Corey Funk is here in Lacabani on the front porch of the Carkland Farm. We're just on Wendigo Road here. Beautiful, but pretty good studio.
Yeah,
Corey.
I know, right? Doesn't get much better than this.
Like, despite the smoke in the air and what's beyond this, the life coming up, isn't it pretty?
The sunrise, we saw some deer coming in here earlier just across the field here.
We're looking at a creek.
Gorgeous morning. Yeah. There might be maybe a bear come give us a visit too. Who knows?
No, well, they actually said yesterday, some of the folks, that they have seen, as described by Drew, who is the partner of Riva here at the farm, as he described it, he said he's seen more deer out in this field behind us than he has actually all season. And they kind of look, I mean, obviously this is his view, but he says the animals animals kind of almost looked like dazed, and they should, because they're coming out of an area that's the forest is completely gone.
Right.
And that is, I could probably throw a baseball if I had a better arm. Like if I were in center field and threw to home plate, that's as far. Right behind barns that didn't burn, you see where the firefighters saved this property. And then beyond there, it's just completely ashen. In fact, a tree came down. Drew was saying just yesterday, they were out checking the chicken coop. So, because the roots are all exposed, because the fire, the floor of the ground is just crazy. Traffic wise, what do people need to know to start the day?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of any major issues yet out there on the roads. But if you do see something going on, do give me a call on that CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
I'm Marcy Marcusa with Corey Funk. This is a special edition of Information Radio live from Lacabani. Well, when you look at the Manitoba Fire View Map online, and a lot of us have been doing that, of course, in these last number of weeks, all you see is sort of a big red blotch over the area impacted by fire. When you're here, though, on the ground in the area that was recently hardest hit, and of course, Nopaming is still out of control and just not far from here, you really realize how much this devastation is in some areas, and then yet, strangely, fire is so strange. Other areas completely untouched if it switched paths. We heard a story about how a fire melted a lawnmower, and then right beside it, a snowmobile was completely fine. I mean, like in the same shed. And you can see a similar contrast on a ranch that actually is just down the road from where we are in Wendigo here, just around the bend. So, Corey, you and I were there yesterday. You spoke to the owner.
Yeah, it's called Boreal Ranch. And when you pull up, it's so strange. You see this lush green grass, a beautiful greenhouse, lots of chickens all over the yard, but just beyond, scorched trees, black ground, and for some reason, a green trail that ran through those trees is still completely green. It's just this surreal, almost like strange Dr. Seussian, but dark kind of view. It's owned by Megan Schwabiak and her husband Rob, who bought it 3 years ago. They also actually have a house just up the road in Grousden Point, which would end up being okay. But I spoke with her yesterday about just what happened.
How many chickens do you have here?
Right now we have around 300 in different life stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all of them are fine after the fire?
Yes.
Wow.
There's a rooster.
Oh. Tell me, what happened to your property?
Okay. When I got here on Tuesday, it's springtime, so we're busy. We got a lot of birds coming in and out. I was hauling 55, I had 55 laying hens in the back of my truck. And when I pulled in here, right across the road there was where all the flames were. The sky was black, and I had this idea that I could get here and start sprinklers and do something, and I kind of just pulled up and said, wow, like, this is surreal. It was so intense. It was so fast. The wind was blowing. The smoke was everywhere. And I kind of just grabbed, I didn't think grab much from the ranch even, and we just got out. I didn't know if I should let the birds out, and I didn't, because some of them were so small they would have probably not survived anyway. So yeah, I opened up the fences hoping if they need to they can run out, and we left. So yeah, we didn't know what was going on at this place or our other house, and we sort of found a solution for the chickens that I had in the back of the truck. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this if we have nothing left here, because you need this infrastructure to even have these animals here. So yeah, we were so grateful that someone in the community offered up a shed, and we had so many people reaching out to us with help. Can we get you pumps? Do you need a place to stay? Can we take the kids? Anything you need, just let us know. It was so amazing, so comforting. And yeah, we went to a restaurant and we just kind of watched the fire. And then all of a sudden I started getting readings on my temperature sensors. And I was like, oh, honey, we're still around. Like, the ranch house must be here because we're getting readings, and the phone's in the ranch house. And all of our outbuildings are recording temperatures, including the greenhouse. And it was so strange because both of us were just like, especially me who had been here. Rob didn't make it here. We didn't even grab anything. Like, we weren't around when this happened, and it happened so fast. We knew that we had some things going on here. So we were able to come in later that evening because we knew that the birds would likely still be around. And we pulled up to a green pasture amidst a sea of black and just like really started crying because the greenhouse we thought would be gone, and we built that, and it's just everything that we built over the past 3 years to have that disappear in one afternoon. It would have been devastating. And I guess we just were sitting with the mindset of, wow, we might lose our home and our business, and where do we go from there? So.
And I mean, like, you look around, like you can go drive 5 minutes up north, and the devastation there, it's so different.
I know. Yeah. It's black. It's, yeah.
And now that you've been back here for about a week or so, but like you said, like the devastation just north of here, it's a huge contrast, right? So how are you, and how's the community been kind of navigating now that things are, people are able to kind of survey the destruction, all around?
Well, there's going to definitely be a change in our community here. But I think what I've seen is a lot of compassion, a lot of reaching out. And I think the best thing that we can do is be there to help other people in whatever way they need. So whether it's, do you need a place to stay, or, what do you need? What can I do for you? Just to help ease their time with us and their process in dealing with the devastation that's happened. So there's a lot of people in this area that contribute to not just this community here, but to the community at large. And I think that's one of the things that's also breaking my heart, is that there's, if these people do decide to go and not rebuild, we're losing some amazing people around here. Like, through this whole thing, I knew we had a great community. Like, I knew Lacabani was awesome. We moved here 3 years ago and we absolutely love it, but I had no idea how amazing people really were until we experienced what we did. And the outreach of help in all directions, and even just visiting some of the people who have lost and how they're processing it, I still see hope within them and within the community. So I think the way we're all coming together is just pretty amazing and beyond what I thought we could do.
Megan Schwabiak in conversation with Corey Funk yesterday at Boreal Ranch. It's just down the road from the front porch where we're broadcasting from today. We are at Wendigo Road. She was in conversation there with, as I mentioned, Corey. Still ahead, we're going to hear more about hope. There's this beautiful pot of little purple flowers that have been put up in one of the most devastated areas, and it just was left there. And the color is so poignant against the dark background of the fire aftermath. But it was just left there by someone as a sign of what hopefully will be coming in the future for this area in Lacabani.
A cosmetics empire started by a woman in an era when women couldn't even vote. A family-owned business that has lasted 88 years. And a TV show that broke records.
You fold in the cheese then. Don't you dare. You fold it in.
David! Terry O'Reilly has a case of brand envy on Under the Influence. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
6:24 a.m. is the time right now, and I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're broadcasting live from Lacabani this morning, but we also have news of the day to be covering. One of the things we're going to talk about next on CBC's Information Radio is actually a summertime harm that is affecting young people. I'm talking about melanoma. There's a recent study that was published in the BMJ Public Health. It's highlighting a troubling trend in deadly skin cancer cases in Canada. More than 11,000 people diagnosed with melanoma in 2024. That's up 17% from the previous years. And there's a rising number of young Canadians. Dr. Julia Carroll's here to talk about it. She's board-certified dermatologist and national chair of the Mole Mobile for Melanoma Canada. Good morning.
Good morning.
What sense do you make of these melanoma rates going up so dramatically?
Well, the interesting thing from that recent study is we know that about 1 in 3 Canadians reported having at least one sunburn in the past year, and younger adults, 18 to 29, were most likely to get sunburned and to use tanning beds.
How concerning is that for you, especially among young people who, you feel like the educational messages get through and yet?
Right. Well, I mean, we know that one bad sunburn before the age of 20 can double your risk of melanoma. And the sad part is that melanoma is a very preventable cancer. With protecting yourself from the sun, we can dramatically lower the risk of melanoma. So, this younger generation, it's quite divided though, actually. I feel like there's a lot of people in their 20s that are really almost obsessive about sunscreen, but then there's this other group that we just haven't gotten the message out yet. And so we know that they're putting themselves at harm.
How do the numbers break down in terms of, we're talking about age, but also in terms of gender?
So we know that men particularly around melanoma, men over 50 dominate the numbers. But in younger people, that incidence tends to be slightly higher in women. So this could be due to past tanning bed use, maybe outdoor fashion choices. We know, for example, that in women, the most common place to get a melanoma is on the back of the calves, versus in men, it tends to be on the back.
That's interesting. In terms of using sunscreen, just remind us of some of the basic recommendations about the products and how they can keep us safe.
Right. It's really quite simple. So you're looking for a broad spectrum product, something that covers UVA and UVB, and you want it to have an SPF of at least 30. And you can look for the Canadian Dermatology Association logo, the CDA logo. Those products are found readily available in drugstores near you, and they've been vetted by a large group of dermatologists to be safe and effective. And then the other important thing with sunscreen is to wearability. So just looking for one that you're going to like. There's so many different options out there. There are sprays, there are powders, there's gels, lotions, sticks are great for kids. So when people say, oh, I just don't like sunscreen, they just haven't found their perfect match yet. There's one out there for them.
And I just want to return to the trend of younger people and melanoma, and I'm wondering about just if you could elaborate a bit on the impact of social media on maybe this trend around being tanned, or around how is it impacting people negatively?
Right. So I don't know if all parents are aware of this. I am the mom of a teenage girl, and you ask any teenage girl what the UV index is, and they will know. They're obsessed with it. And it's not because they're trying to avoid it. It's because they're trying to max out their tanning time. So on TikTok right now, there are 2 trending videos, or 2 trending trends, I guess. UV index tanning and the tan line challenge. So these videos really glamorize high UV tanning, and these clips are reaching 10+ million views. So it's something that parents should be aware of. And I say, if you've got kids coming over for a little fun in the backyard, you put out your basket of snacks and then put out your basket of sunscreen.
Wow, I had no idea. I'm not the parent of a 14-year-old girl, so that's a super concerning trend, but I love your advice there. Thank you very much for being with us to walk us through this. Of course, as we have really hot weather coming to Manitoba this week, so your timing's perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a sun-safe summer.
As Dr. Julia Carroll, a board-certified dermatologist, national chair of the Mobile for Melanoma Canada, with us to talk about what is a dramatic increase in melanoma. It's up 17% from the previous year, according to Melanoma Canada. More than 11,000 people were diagnosed in 2024. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We are live on CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube, and we're in a gorgeous setting here in Lacabani at the Carkland Farm, overlooking the fields and the trees. But then beyond it, you see why we're here. You see the black areas where and felled trees where people lost properties, cottages, and yes, just up the road, lost their lives. And so we are covering the aftermath of the wildfires here. We will move forward and talk more about the spirit of the people. And we'll hear more now on our CBC News Next about where fires are still a huge challenge across this province this morning. Stay with us.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30 it is, we've got a few clouds out there. It is 12 degrees. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds today. Another hazy one again with a high of 25. There is also a risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon in Winnipeg. The northern community of Winnipeg has declared a local state of emergency. A few kilometers away, an out-of-control wildfire burns. Winnipeg's Mayor Reg Mead says calling the local state of emergency gave officials time to prepare in case they have to evacuate.
It's just a pre-registration so that the forms are all made out and there's no hassle about trying to get it done at a moment's notice.
Mead says all 400 people in the community were registered by Sunday. At least 50 have been identified as high-priority evacuees, those with health issues and young children. Mead says people have their bags packed while the community waits for more information. Now, Manitobans are being warned wildfire smoke is causing poor air quality and reduced visibility. Environment Canada has again issued a special air quality statement for much of Manitoba's north, an air quality warning still in effect for the southeast corner of the province. Environment Canada meteorologist Justin Shelley urges everyone to check the Air Quality Health Index before heading outdoors.
Consider reducing or rescheduling any strenuous outdoor activities, especially if you are experiencing symptoms like a cough or dizziness or nausea. And you also want to monitor those who might be more at risk.
Shelley says warm, dry conditions are expected through this week. In fact, hot conditions, and that will cause the smoke to linger. To Ottawa now, where amid great pomp and ceremony, including a horse-drawn carriage ride to Parliament Hill, King Charles will deliver the Liberal government's throne speech.
This I will be put behind the bread.
King Charles yesterday greeting well-wishers after planting a tree at Rideau Hall, and in just a few hours he delivers that speech from the throne. The head of the Assembly of First Nations hopes the King's visit to Canada marks a step forward in the relationship between Indigenous people and the Crown. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak says the two sides have to find a way to work together. She met with King Charles late yesterday in Ottawa.
First Nations people, we have a long history with him and his family, and to remember how Canada was built. It was built on First Nation territory, and things aren't always perfect, but at the same time, trying to reset the relationship. I think it's such an important time right now.
Many other Indigenous leaders are in Ottawa holding meetings coinciding with the King's visit. They say they will be watching and listening closely as he reads the throne speech later this morning. CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers that speech from the throne. You can join Your World Tonight's Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen from the House for special coverage. It all begins at 10 o'clock Central right here on CBC Radio 1. A Winnipeg City Councillor wants Mayor Scott Gillingham to take away a civic award given to a local business person. Sherry Rowland says she's worried about a video she says was reshared online by the Canadian-Palestinian Association of Manitoba regarding the Israel-Hamas war. Winnipeg police say they are investigating that video. The association's president, Ramsey Zeid, is also the owner of Food Fair on Maryland. Zeid recently received the Mayor's Business Improvement Award Zone Award, and Rowlands wants the mayor to rescind that honor.
Mr. Zeid is attempting to have some difficult discussions with perhaps very imperfect language, but there has to be consequences to that.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says Rowland should talk to the West Broadway Biz, which made the nomination. For his part, Zeid says he is seeking legal advice about what Rowland's communicated to the mayor. Selkirk's MLA is urging the province to take his concerns seriously about a dangerous intersection in the RM of St. Andrews. Richard Pershott says not only does the intersection of Highways 8 and 67 have poor visibility, speeding is also a concern. He says he has warned the government about it multiple times, but nothing has been done. And last week, an 18-year-old died in a crash there.
This is a call for action. This is a call for the minister to do something. Just stop ignoring the RM of St. Andrews, stop ignoring the emergency personnel, and stop ignoring myself, who's been sent here on behalf of constituents to actually do something and fix that intersection.
Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor says the government is looking at safety improvements, including adding passing lanes on Highway 8. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Let's get the forecast now from Abby Adeyemi, who's in Winnipeg, as I'm out here in Lacabani. You guys are almost double our temperature. I got to look that up once again, but it was 6 degrees when I woke up, and you said, Abby, Winnipeg's around 12?
Let me just do the refresh there. Lacabani is still at 6 degrees and Winnipeg at 12 at this time. We're seeing some smoke in the air, warm conditions outside, but smoke in the air where you are. Expecting sunshine in the city today. We warm up to 25 degrees. In the Pembina Valley region, we're seeing similar conditions to Winnipeg from Modern Winkler and all the way down to the U.S. border. Temperatures close to 14 degrees at this time. Also sunny, and there's a chance of thunderstorm later this afternoon, warming close to 26. Brandon is at 7. It will warm up to 24. Similar conditions in Dauphin, 7 degrees, getting close to 28 degrees later today. Clouds will roll in, and also that chance of thunderstorm in the afternoon period. In the Interlake region, 10 degrees at this point in Gimli. We are looking at that special air quality statement in effect due to that fire from the smoke causing poor air quality for that part of the province. We're seeing highs near 26 degrees. Flin Flon, the Power, Thompson, we're seeing temperatures hover between 11 and 13 degrees at this point in Churchill. All these regions have similar conditions and will be warming close to 26 degrees in the northern part of the province. But the big thing today is smoke in the northern part of the province and the southeast corner of Manitoba today. Winnipeg, we're at 12 degrees.
All right, you can sure smell the smoke in the air here in Lacabani. The other thing is you realize the geography of the province when you get out here, right? So we talk about the Lacabani fire, which is now considered under control. Nopaming's still out of control. And Nopaming and Bird River, like we saw so much smoke yesterday here across the water, Corey and I, and we were like, where is that again? And we realized we twisted and turned so much that was actually the Nopaming fires. So you think that things are so far away from each other, but in fact, when it comes to fires, I mean, we're all really connected. And when the wind blows, we all get that smoke in our lungs. So take it easy out there. Speaking of Corey, he's here with our commute update, or just to remind you where you can call.
Yeah, just heads up if you are heading northbound Pembina. I know it's been a while for a long time, but from Chancellor to Plaza, you lose those 2 left lanes, always very slow. Also yesterday, going down Chief Peguis, a reminder, heading towards La Jamodière, very slow as well. You lost your right lane to some construction too. If you have any other updates that you're seeing, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Let's take a moment here off the Carkland's front porch at the Carkland Farm in Lacabani to see if we can hear any of the birds. And as soon as I say that, you won't hear them. They were just so loud. The reason I'm saying that is because part of why people live in these parts of Manitoba is for the beauty and for the wildlife. And still ahead this half hour on the show, we're going to meet a pair of cottagers who are actually raising funds to help the wildlife that were devastated by the fires here. So that story's coming up still ahead in this half hour. Right now, a quick look at business news. Phil Demont joins us. Good morning.
Morning, Marcy.
So the OECD has a new report out on Canada. What does it say?
Yeah, the Paris-based Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development released its latest overview of the Canadian economy, and there's good and bad in it. You wouldn't be surprised by that. On the plus side, Canada should avoid a recession in the next 2 years, that despite all the economic uncertainty worldwide. Predicts Canada will grow about 1% this year, a little more next year. Not stunning numbers, but at least they're not negative. Our productivity growth, though, remains mediocre, 1% versus 1.5% for the entire OECD. The group says getting people better trained for available jobs would help. That's the trades kind of argument as opposed to going to university, as would channeling more incentives for business to invest in R&D and innovation. That's been a chronic problem in Canada, businesses underinvesting in capital. The other big problem, again, probably not a surprise, housing prices. The cost of buying a home in this country has gone up faster than in the rest of the OECD. Here, the report focused on help getting more homes built. Things like allowing more higher density buildings in cities and getting more help for builders. What it doesn't mention, assistance for buyers. That's because generally allowing or give this type of help would only drive up prices. Good for homeowners, but people wanting to buy homes, they're actually not better off, and it doesn't attract new construction. So overall, the OECD, but it's a pretty august group, basically saying, well, we kind of knew already.
To another story, Canada's declining productivity has been a constant theme of Ottawa's critics. Can you explain, Phil, what's going on there?
Yeah, this is the genesis of Canada's lost decade, a description of how our productivity has lagged in the past 10 years or so. Now, we know the economic performance up here has been a bit of a problem. Our GDP per capita, Marcy here, think of the words income per person if you want to use that. It fell in 2023 versus 2022. Our average income less than 80% of a comparable U.S. figure. So goes the argument we need to make radical changes to improve that performance. Growing backlash against this argument of Canada being a woeful economic performer, though. Jim Stanford over at the Centre for Future Work in Vancouver, arguing that immigration in this country soared in recent years. We know that, but it takes new Canadians a few years to get up and running at their new jobs. When that happens, he says, our productivity should start to improve quickly. We also have a fairer income distribution than in the U.S. So basically, there's fewer poor people in this country than south of the border, and that's a good thing. His main argument, though, is look around. According to available statistics, Ireland should be, if you're Irish, you should be twice as rich as Canada. But if you go there, that's obviously not the case. And I kind of think he's right here. I think we need to look a bit deeper at the economic performance to get at really what we have to improve, rather than just kind of say, well, it's about government spending, about taxes, which tends to be the argument.
What are the markets telling us today, Phil?
Right now, the European Union and the U.S. seem to have a bit of a truce on the trade tariff front. So UK, Germany up close to 1%. The Nikkei in Japan, Hong Kong up about 0.5%. Oil's down a dime, $61.43 a barrel. Gold's off $74, $3,292 an ounce, a U.S. an ounce. And finally, the Canadian dollar, it's down marginally, trading at 72.66 cents U.S.
All right, Phil, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Phil DeMont live with our business report on CBC. Well, we are broadcasting, as I mentioned, live from one of the wildfire zones, acknowledging that there's fires still burning all over the province. But we're in Lacabani. The fire here is considered under control, but I can tell you we're still hearing the helicopters, water bombers. There's crews all over the place. They're trying to watch hot spots for the peat. The smoke, of course, is in the air still, and that's also coming from the Nopaming fire. But we're at the Carkland Farm. This is on Wendigo Road. This is one of the most severe hit areas in this part of the province and in the fire. And we're at the Carkland Farm just on the porch, as I mentioned, overlooking. Actually, the road is right behind me here. And it's interesting because there's a lot of green that's starting to come up. And then it's so strange because some of the trees that burned, they're just still standing, but they're standing where they burned. They haven't even been felled. So when you're driving in here, it's just a strange sight. I bet that 2 weeks ago when all this really started here feels like a lifetime ago for my next guest. Gay Kirby lives on Wendigo Road, and she, as she put it, escaped, she escaped something really that could have been a terrible fate. Not only once, but twice. She ultimately was helicoptered out to safety, and only thanks to, her son and an RCMP officer, I understand. And so Gay's come up the road because what this broadcast is all about is people sharing their stories, but also their thanks and their hope for the future. And we're so happy to see you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
So I'm going to let you start where you want to. Do you want to talk about what happened, or do you want to start with the thank yous this morning and the positive part?
Well, I think I want to thank you too for coming out here, because last week I had phoned CBC because I thought people should be thanked. I know people should be thanked, but we've had a chance to process so much stuff. It was so high emotions, and I actually thought I was okay. We were evacuated and didn't know enough, but now if someone else, everybody's asking everybody, are you okay? And I don't think we are.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Riva, where we're here right now, she she messaged our local group here, and it was because of her that the first 3 people got out safely. My husband and I and our 2 neighbors, we were trapped because where we are is actually on Latonia Lane off of Wendigo, and it's a peninsula. So when we tried to drive out, we drove right into, we thought it was smoke that just turned into a flame that was shooting straight horizontal across the road.
Do you remember what you're thinking in that moment? Could you smell and feel it, or is it just this reaction? Is that really a flame?
You can't believe it because the wind was just screaming, so the fire was going straight across the road. So my husband backed up, which was very difficult because it was just black. And when we got off of there, we went off into the point, and we actually thought the fire was going to go sideways. And we went down to the beach to our neighbor's place, who were still there and were still packing up. And I happened to phone my son, told him we were waiting. he said, "Mom, I'm going to hang up the phone now. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something." So he phoned the RCMP.
So you're standing on the beach and you've turned back from this wall of flame, and now you're waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, well, no, I phoned him.
You phoned him,
and he said, and he phoned the RCMP, who phoned the provincial helicopters, and they showed up.
So are you standing there like, what, do you see this, do you hear the helicopter first, or could you see it through the
he
smoke?
went around because of course they need space to land, and we happened to, there's a field in front of the beach, so we moved our cars back, and where we moved it back, that it eventually got burned, but we got out. But I have to explain that we weren't truly aware of how severe it was, that the fire was minutes away, and we didn't know that until later. So
a lot of people are saying that, though, because of how quickly it moved. There were people saved off out of a different fire, a man who was fishing with his son, and they were, it wasn't until they got in the air that they looked down and went, oh. What was it like for you? Were you able to look out when the helicopter took off? We were. We're all snuggled in there, but honestly, I thought, I didn't think it was that serious. Yeah. It took weeks, days before I kind of put those pieces together. And what would you have you seen the RCMP officer or the copter pilot that saved you after this?
Yes, I did. I phoned the RCMP and thanked them, and I phoned the provincial helicopters and talked with Corey. He was the pilot, and thanked him. So I think we might be buying them a few gifts. So thank you.
You were saying that the feeling of things is coming and going, because really you're processing. Most of us can only imagine and hope we never go through. Gay.
Everybody. I was talking with people at the food bank yesterday, and I really what we're all in that terrible position of being very, very grateful, because I've discovered that the firefighters were fighting for hours and hours to save our house and our neighbor's house.
We should mention your home was saved.
Yes, our home
was saved. Yeah.
And our neighbor's home. The fire was literally inches away from our home when you see and they saved it. And we're all in this terrible position right now of being grateful for having a home, but sorrowful, just so painful that other people lost everything.
Yeah, and including your neighbors. And I just want to mention this, because people might be wondering why we have in the morning. I haven't talked about the Knowles yet, but that is really out of respect just for the family here. So obviously Richard and Sue Knoll, they lived right up the road. I can see the curve where they would have lived, and they did lose their lives in this fire. What do you think the support will be needed in this area for the way forward, given the processing what everybody went through, those that survived like yourself, and and also just looking around at how much has been lost?
Well, that's I think talking. I think this is a community I know it's a community that stays very close together, and just standing around, going through what happened, getting those feelings out. Talking about it is so important, and sharing and talking with especially the people who lost everything, and supporting them.
How do you feel about, we talked about the firefighters and the RCMP that were, helping, but how do you feel about your friends and neighbors? I'll tell you, Corey and I, we keep hearing from everybody how it was like, we knew we lived in a good community, but everyone just, do you need food? You need a place to stay? Do you need clothes? Everybody's just been stepping up. They said like crazy. And let's remember, everybody in Manitoba listening, Lacabani's only got, I think, like about 1,000, 1,200 people. And then you have this sparse rural area. People are spread out, but everybody just kind of sprung into action.
I went to see Dorothy the other day. You can not see
across
her
the
home,
street. There's a property
just
here.
Across the road, and she was dressed out in new clothes, and they looked great on her. And she has a place that her friend let her live.
This is a woman across the road that actually lost her whole home. It's just a foundation.
That's right.
Now.
She got out with her 3 dogs. So,
yeah.
and
this is a beautiful segue to something here for just a minute, because you're talking about Dorothy. and she got it with her 3 dogs.
Yes.
So let this be a hopeful way for us to end our interview. Let's show everybody in Manitoba this if they can see it.
That's fabulous. That's a friend of that made that for her.
She's describing a sign, radio listeners.
This is her dog Gibbs. They would go every single day, go way out onto the end point with her dogs in her little cart. And she had that made for him, and he loved to get to the end, and that's what he would get. He and his 2 buddies, would get their treats, and he'd go for a swim.
So what we're looking at is a wooden sign that has sort of this picture of Gibbs, and there he is. It says Gibbs Point on the sign, and what I love about this is this survived.
Yeah.
So there's Dorothy, just with a foundation left, on her home she had for many years, this lady. But this sign was apparently recovered just yesterday, and so
that is wonderful. I'll give it to her this afternoon. When I go into town, I'll give it to her.
Gay, all the best to you and your neighbors and all the people of Lacabani here.
Mm-hmm.
And as we, whenever we visit a part of the province, I think, I don't want it to be a cliche, but when we were in Dauphin after a tragedy there, Dauphin strong, and floods, it becomes Red River Valley strong. And so here's to Lacabani strong, to you and your neighbors. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Kay Kirby here live with us on CBC. We're on the porch on Wendigo Road here at the Carkland Farm. It's 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. Well, let's continue talking about fires, but change what we're talking about. I mentioned that a lot of people come out to these parts of Manitoba really to enjoy friends, family, but also peace, quiet, and wildlife. So one of the other things that has been affected by these fires and continues to be is what's happening with wildlife. It's been just over a week now since crews battling a fire spotted this small black bear cub that a lot of people in Manitoba know, hobbling on a road in this area. He was badly burned. He was scared, small little guy, 7 pounds. Natural resource workers took her to Black Bear Rescue Manitoba and hoped she could be saved. Sayin was her later name, touched the hearts of a lot of people who were maybe looking for some kind of hope to hang on to. Despite best efforts, though, the bear cub did not survive. Her story, though, has sparked something. And so Lisa Miller and Nancy Arnold are here. They've just sat down. I'm going to slide you guys this way. Move your chairs a little so you can look at the camera. Doing this all on the fly. I want Manitoba to see you here. They are here joining us live. They're best friends. They got strong ties to this community. They've taken action. They've created something called Wild Ones Manitoba. So these are hoodies and t-shirts for sale. The proceeds go to Black Bear Rescue Manitoba and to Wildlife Rehab. And so we're so glad to have you here. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. And Lindsay Miller's here. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having us.
I'm trying to find hope in all these devastating stories, which is kind of what you guys are doing. So tell me a little bit about your connection to this community first.
Sure. So Lindsay and I both have cottages out here, and we have for my cottage was born. I guess it
since you were born, you've been coming here.
Pretty much, yeah.
We gotcha.
50 years ago, and we worked out here as teenagers and just grew up in the area. So we've never seen anything like this, and it's been super stressful and overwhelming and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was Lindsay about? What moved you about this little bear cub?
It was the pictures of her were the first thing that we saw, and Nancy and I are huge wildlife fans. One of the reasons we love being out here is because we get to see them in our yard. I had a bear walk right up my driveway last summer, and when we saw her picture and we read her story, we were immediately moved by it, and we were rooting for her. Everybody across the country. The story went viral, and when we heard of her passing, we were just absolutely devastated. And we knew that at that point we needed to jump in and do something to help the wildlife. And we got started. We got to work right away.
Yeah. So you're wearing some of the sweatshirts. People can see this here. So this is, I love this one. So it's green one. It's got wild ones with a big tree on it. Nice hoodie there. Yeah. And I love this. You've actually got the bear's name.
Well, this might be something new.
Oh, it says Sayin on it with the bear paws. So tell me why it's new. Tell me about this.
Well, we did a first run, we're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
We just started this 2 Saturdays ago, the weekend before last, and we were literally like, okay, let's get this out quick, and then launched on the Tuesday. So we are wrapping up our first run today, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So last chance to order today to get in this first run, and we are absolutely blown away by the orders.
Really? Like, tell me, like people like going
we
crazy.
didn't even expect anything. We're over 800 shirts at this point. We're selling in the States, across Canada, overseas. The messages we're getting are amazing. So we are working on some new stuff.
So if people want to learn more about this, and as we mentioned, 100% of the proceeds go to the Black Bear Rescue here in the province.
Black Bear and also Wildlife Haven. And we've had such an overwhelming response that we have reached out to Prairie Wildlife Rehabilitation Center and asked if we could also provide them with some donations. So
good.
All three.
Yeah. Where can people find more information? Where's the best place to go?
Through social media and through our website.
Okay.
So we're on Facebook and Instagram, Wild Ones Manitoba. And then we opened up a website, wildonesmanitoba.ca, and all our ordering is going through there. We are able to ship. We just don't have it set up on our site. We just had no idea it would go past Lacabani and Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So
there's something special about this part of the province, and watching all you folks who care about this Lacabani area come together in so many different ways. As I said, we're just hearing all those stories. How do you think that Lacabani community members are going to get through this?
I think when Manitoba has a need, everybody just joins together, and it's the people that will get them. It's the group, the community, the helping, the words of encouragement, the clothing, the food, all of it. Just even being here it's so emotional.
Yeah. Take your time, Lindsay. You want to say a last word, Nancy, while you're talking to Manitoba about how you feel about the people in this part of the province?
I just the community coming together has been incredible. We can't give enough gratitude to the firefighters. Seeing the area, like seeing the burn parts is emotional for sure. Like driving up here, and you drive down the highway, you don't necessarily see it, but when you drive into it, I have no words.
Yeah. So many people across our province are dealing with this in their own communities. Thank you both for being here, for what you're doing for the wildlife. It's an important part of rural Manitoba. It's a gift.
Yeah, we share our homes with them, so
thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Lindsay Miller, Nancy Arnold, co-founders of Wild Ones Manitoba. Find them on all the socials. Check out what they've been doing to try and support the different rescues, and as mentioned, the different organizations that help wildlife and Black Bear Rescue here. For information, wildonesmanitoba.ca is the website that you can go to. And speaking of saving and being thankful for firefighters, I mean, it's really startling when you're sitting on a farm like this that looks like it's intact, and then you see the line and you learn where volunteers were out there holding hoses, trying to save where we're sitting right now, and they managed to do it in the face of the flames and the smoke. It's just incredible. 2 minutes to 7. Let's go back to Heather Wells in Winnipeg with developing headlines on your Tuesday morning.
Good morning. Well, an out-of-control wildfire just outside the northern community of Wabodin has prompted officials to declare a local state of emergency. Wabodin's mayor says that gives them time to prepare in case they have to quickly evacuate. The wildfires are impacting the air we breathe. Again, we have an air quality warning for southeast Manitoba, parts of the north under a special air quality statement. Experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in both the short and long term. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Well, I can tell you that in Winnipeg, the current temperature 12 degrees, the high 25. Air quality, as you've been hearing, is an issue here in the Lacabani area as well, but it's only 6 degrees here right now. Your commute's been fine so far. 788-3093 if you do need to reach us. Well, in the next hour of Information Radio, turning to some serious issues moving forward that have to do with concerns. Some people who lost homes and cottages to the fire in this area aren't sure if they want to rebuild. One of those property owners, 2 of them, in fact, is going to be here to talk about what they need to feel safe here again and how they felt about how evacuation happened. They represent a group of 19 different people, property owners. In addition, in the next hour of the show, Survivor's Guilt. We're going to hear from a man whose home was saved, but he has quite a message to share. Stay with us. Special show from Lacabani.
Today on The Current.
There's not a moment to lose. Think what it would mean if I could talk to the animals. Just imagine it.
Humans have always been curious about what animals are saying to each other. Well, now scientists are using artificial intelligence to map animal calls with the hope that understanding animals will boost conservation efforts. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Angie Seth. It is a ceremonial act with a political message. King Charles III will open Parliament in just a few hours by delivering the speech from the throne. The contents of that speech outlined the priorities for Prime Minister Mark Carney's government, but the King's presence in Canada is meant to send a broader message that Canada is sovereign and free. David Thurton has more.
This will be put behind the bridge.
King Charles greeting well-wishers after planting a tree at Rideau Hall.
It's not raining, the sun is shining, the future is bright, the land is strong.
Prime Minister Mark Carney ahead of today's speech from the throne. A speech that will outline the government's goals for the new parliamentary session. It's written by the Prime Minister's office, but usually the Governor-General reads it. This time the King will do it in person.
I'm looking forward to having the King.
Conservative Michael Barrett welcomes the royal visit at a time when Donald Trump wants Canada to become the 51st state.
And so I think that it will serve a good purpose in education, in reminding Canadians about where we come from, and of course underscores our sovereignty.
Philippe Lagacé is a Westminster parliamentary expert.
And if you want to demonstrate the importance of Canadian sovereignty, why not bring in the sovereign to do so?
But New Democrat interim leader Don Davies is not as enthused.
You know, I've heard from a lot of Canadians that inviting a hereditary monarch who is the head of state of a foreign country is not necessarily the best way for a modern democracy to express its independence and sovereignty.
The Bloc Québécois also slammed what it calls a foreign king opening parliament. Its MPs will boycott the king's speech. A sign this visit meant to bring the country together is also dividing some. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
And CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers the speech from the throne. Join your World Tonight's Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen of CBC Radio's The House for special coverage. Tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern on CBC Radio, CBC Listen, Sirius, and the CBC News app. Well, police in the UK are holding a 53-year-old man in custody after a minivan plowed through a large group of people in Liverpool. Nearly 50 people were injured yesterday during a street celebration for a big soccer championship. Right now, investigators say they're trying to figure out how it all happened. Wilhelm Marx has the latest.
It's still not clear how or why the vehicle rammed through the crowd, but the incident is not being treated as terrorism-related, according to Merseyside Police. Jenny Sims is the Assistant Chief Constable.
Extensive inquiries are ongoing to establish the circumstances leading up to the collision, and it is vital that people do not speculate or spread misinformation on social media.
Misinformation after a stabbing attack last year in the nearby town of Southport led to riots that targeted local mosques, after members of the public incorrectly read on social media that the suspect in that incident was a Muslim asylum seeker. It's something Liverpool's local Member of Parliament, Kim Johnson, was keen to avoid.
I'm really pleased that the police did come out almost immediately to let us know who was the perpetrator of this act.
Yeah, we were there, but just actually about 100 yards away from where the incident actually happened.
Steve Rotherham is the regional mayor. He tells the BBC that everyone is thinking about those who were hurt.
That's where we really have to focus our minds. There are still 4 people who are very, very ill in hospital, and we are hoping, of course, that they pull through and recover very, very quickly.
Authorities say more than 24 people were hospitalised, including several children. Willem Marx, CBC News, London.
Back here at home, helicopters equipped with night vision are flying over northern Alberta, and crews on board are trying to contain an out-of-control wildfire that is threatening the town of Swan Hills. 1,300 people live there, and they've been ordered to evacuate or to leave their homes as unpredictable winds fan the flames. The CBC's Emily Williams reports.
Little overwhelmed, to say the least.
Swan Hills resident Beverly Arsenault as she and her husband pack up their motorhome, hoping they still have a town to come back to.
I've lived here all my life. This will be my 8th time I've been evacuated.
The fire that pushed nearly 1,400 residents to pack their bags is about 7 kilometers from the community, fueled by hot, dry, and windy conditions. Residents are heading south to a reception center in Whitecourt, where Mayor Tom Pickard says they are ready to welcome Swan Hills residents.
We're going to make it as enjoyable or pleasant as we can for Swan Hills. It's very traumatic for them.
Alberta Wildfire Information Officer José Saint-Onge says firefighters, air tankers, and helicopters are working to contain the fire.
We're doing everything we can to contain this wildfire and make sure they can go home as soon as possible.
She forecasts busy days ahead as thunderstorms yesterday afternoon have sparked even more fires. Emily Williams, CBC News, Edmonton.
Lawyers watching the trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players say the Crown's job just got harder. The judge in the sexual assault trial has ruled a key piece of evidence inadmissible. The 5 former team members have all been charged with sexual assault following a Hockey Canada gala in 2018. They've all pleaded not guilty. CBC's Karen Pauls is covering the trial.
And Howden down and hurt.
Vegas Golden Knights forward Brett Howden was knocked unconscious and had to be carried out on a stretcher during a game in March 2022.
That is a scary hit.
Whether or not that contributed to Howden's memory loss, as lawyers suggested Monday in court, he's been unable to provide details the Crown was counting on, which is why she's tried so hard, in vain, to get a text message Howden wrote about Dylan Dubé slapping the buttocks of the complainant admitted into evidence.
The Crown has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Dubé was in fact the person who allegedly slapped EM without consent.
Lisa Kelly is an associate professor at Queen's University Faculty of Law, where she teaches criminal law and evidence.
And if the Crown cannot satisfy the finder of fact, in this case the trial judge, the rightful legal outcome should be an acquittal.
Former senior Crown attorney Michael Korestein agrees. Howden's memory gaps and the exclusion of the texts weakens the case against Dubé.
This evidence had the ability to corroborate a very damaging portion of the complainant's evidence. It certainly decreases the likelihood that Mr. Dubé would be found guilty.
Kelly says this trial is a reminder about why it's so important for criminal cases to be tried in a timely fashion before the evidence deteriorates. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Well, despite a rebound last year in venture capital for Canadian startups, investors appear to be growing more cautious. Nearly $8 billion was poured into Canadian startups, but the ongoing trade war with the U.S. has led to much of that funding drying up. As Philippe Dumontigny reports, this could have some long-term consequences.
And for that reason, I'm out.
Popularized by shows like CBC's Dragon's Den, venture capital is now harder to come by, especially for early-stage Canadian startups.
We see that the investors don't like uncertainties.
Geneviève Boutillier leads the investment branch of the Business Development Bank of Canada. A new BDC report shows 1/3 of the country's venture capital comes from American investors who might choose to move their dollars to the U.S.
So if Canadian investors don't step in, we are at risk of losing our champions.
The biggest impact of the tariffs is the uncertainty.
Kim Furlong is the CEO of the Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. Her organization's data show less than $1.3 billion have been invested in the first 3 months of 2025, spread out over far fewer deals than in previous years.
What I would love is to see more, for example, of Canadian pension plans who have the ability to write these larger checks, come in the later so that the value at the time of exit goes back to Canadian pensioners and stays in Canada and creates more wealth at home versus leaving the country.
But successful exits have been down in the past few years, with no Canadian companies going public in 2024 and only one the year before. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
This moment 10 years ago was the last time the Terry Fox Run was held on the Confederation Bridge. The nearly 13-kilometer bridge connects New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, and it has become a bit of a tradition to shut the whole thing down for runners raising money for cancer research. It was closed in 2005, 2010, and 2015, but in 2020 the event was cancelled because of the COVID pandemic. Well, this September, the run across the Confederation Bridge is back on, marking 45 years since Terry Fox began his cross-Canada Marathon of Hope. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
There's an eerie metal squeaking. This is the sign for the Arlington Sports Club. It's still standing, but the club is not on the shore of the waterway here. There's just charred out trees everywhere you look. This was a fishing co-op, a recreational facility, a place where locals were members. And now there's just piles of debris and one lonely green chair sitting on a rock overlooking the lake. That was part of our tour of this Lacabani area up Wendigo Road yesterday. This morning, a special broadcast in community. We're on the front porch of the Kirkland Farm on Wendigo Road, up in an area where the farm was saved, but around the area you can just see what happened here. The devastation of the aftermath of a wildfire. Today, a number of stories from this part of the fire zone in Manitoba. We're going to hear of a survivor of Lacabani wildfires, talk about how things have changed and share why he says he's only had the emotional strength for one brief visit to the most affected area. He also has survivor's guilt, and he has a call for a better emergency notification system. So stay tuned for that interview. In addition, when homes and cottages here burned, decades of memories went with them. Some property owners, though, say they're not sure if they want to rebuild. We're going to hear from a couple coming up. Plus, at 10 to 8, what goes into fighting a wildfire? From logistics to emotional impact, we will speak with a firefighter from rural Manitoba who will talk about what it has been like this year. Right now to headlines with Heather Wells.
The head of the Assembly of First Nations hopes King Charles's visit to Canada marks a step forward in the relationship between Indigenous people and the Crown. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak met with the King late yesterday in Ottawa. We're going to hear from her coming up. And the PC MLA for Selkirk says the province needs to do more to improve safety at a dangerous intersection in the Orem of St. Andrews. Richard Pershott says he has told government multiple times about the intersection of highways 8 and 67, but nothing has been done. And last week, a fatal crash at that intersection. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm not sure if it's that the wind has switched direction, but the smoke seems to be a little less thick here in the Lacabani area. It was really present first thing this morning. Here's Abby now with our forecast and warnings.
Yeah, we're looking at warm temperatures and a mix of sun and clouds in most of the regions today. That smoke, you'd notice it's going to come and go in most of the regions. We're going to see some winds that would help clear the air as we get into the afternoon period. However, for now, we still have that air quality statement in effect for most parts of the southeastern corner of the province, the Interlake, Flin Flon, Thompson, Churchill, due to that smoke from the fire. So if you're having breathing issues, reduce your outdoor times. Winnipeg at this point, 14 degrees still. The sun about to make its appearance. We'll warm to 25 later. Then we see a mix of sun and clouds. There's a chance of thunderstorms this afternoon and breezy conditions are from the south later today. We warm close to 27 tomorrow, but for today we get to 25.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here with me on the porch as the sun's coming up. Beautiful setting. How's the actual commute today, though, Corey?
Lots of construction still an issue, particularly northbound Pembina. You lose your two left lanes between Chancellor and Plaza. That's always slowing things down as well. Similar on Chief Peguis between Henderson and La Jamodière as well. Very, very slow going as you lose your right lane to construction there. Also got a text from Shelley, who's driving in to the city from Camp Morton around the Gimli area, and she says it's smoky there too. And what was interesting on the way in here is that we were driving down the road, down Langston Way, and we're like, oh, look at that beautiful fog ahead. But then we realized it was actually just a thick patch of smoke that actually I hadn't experienced before. And sure enough, poor visibility, you could smell it, and it might be an issue elsewhere in the province as well, particularly in the east here. So look out for that. If you see anything else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
have been using words like beautiful and idyllic to describe my surroundings immediately here at the Carkland farm. It's a lovely old farmhouse, white with green trim, lace curtains in the window. It's been in the family here for 4 generations. The Carklands have been in this part of Manitoba. But if you just go up the road, not far, just around the bend, people are using the word apocalyptic to describe what it looks like. Charred shrapnel, scorched foundations where houses once stood, including right behind me across the road, all surrounded by blackened trees. That is what Leanne Ross and Martin's family's cottage now looks like. There's just nothing left beside the beautiful Winnipeg River. Her and her husband, Ed Martin, represent 19 families here who lost properties to the fire here in Lacabani. And now they say they're not sure whether they want to rebuild or not. Leanne, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Ed Martin is here as well. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning.
So let's start with a bit of the history here before we move to your concerns about rebuilding. Leanne, how long was the cottage in the family?
My parents began camping in the area in 1965, and they built the majority of the cabins that were there in 1967 with one across the road. In 1971, they moved to the lakefront because my uncle had owned part of it, and basically remained there until we took over in 2008.
What have you loved about the community here?
The community is like no other. My dad's saying was you would lift up a hammer to fix something or add on or whatever it may be, and there was 2 other hammers in the air at the same time with you before you even knew it. Our community, growing up in it, we ran through yards. We weren't allowed to play on the road, and everybody was like a family. We have friends. My parents had friends down there that were like aunt and uncles.
You weren't here and didn't have to evacuate. You were in Winnipeg, I understand. So how did you find out that you lost everything?
Later on Tuesday night of the 13th, we got pictures sent to us by someone who could not figure out, one of our neighbors that could not figure out whether we had cottages or we didn't. So he took a boat out and took a picture. So that's how we found out later on Tuesday.
We're talking to a lot of people. It's hard to believe this is really just 2 weeks ago. Fire is so immediately devastating. We're talking to people this morning that say that they feel like they're okay in one moment and the next minute they're just not. How are you holding up, Leanne?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. A roller coaster of emotions. Being able to see, and actually touch things last Wednesday was helpful, but it is a grieving process, especially when you've been there your whole life.
Ed, you're representing 19 different property owners, some seasonal, some year-round. Tell me a little bit about what you might need to feel confident enough to consider rebuilding.
There's a few things. First and foremost, our hearts go out to the lives of the Noel family. What we want to make sure. Anything that we do prevents that type of tragedy in the future. Given how this unfolded, we do believe that was unnecessary, and we want to make improvements to prevent that from ever happening again. Also important to note that we're very grateful for the work that the emergency responders did. We've heard great things from the folks that were evacuated that had to coordinate and help the evacuees. We recognize and understand the risk that the firefighters put their lives on the line to save people's lives, property, and the surrounding environment. But the actual emergency response plan, we can do better.
I want to ask you about one of your ideas here, because one of the ideas about doing better is is not just the alert system, but it's also the idea of maybe building an outroad. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one of the ideas for sure. The Wendigo Road is where you are standing there. That's basically the only that's the second way out. You're standing really close to a crossroad between Langston Way and Wendigo Road. From that point between Langston and the end of the cottage subdivision at Crosden Point, there is no second egress road. Back, one of our longtime residents spoke of a meeting in 1977 where the officials were announcing the development of the Grosdon Point Cottage subdivision, and it was at a place out near where you are there. And at the time, the government committed to building an access road, a second access road to Grosdon Point, and then over the coming years, they said, "Yeah, it's coming," and that was 1977. So we're closing in on 50 years. So that is definitely something that would ease a lot of concerns, both for ourselves as well as firefighters. We understood that firefighters got trapped on Wendigo Road for a period of time, trying to protect Grosdon successfully, and their lives were at risk as well in this situation.
Thank you both for sharing your stories and concerns with us this morning. There's so much for us to think about and also understand and learn as you've raised some of the issues in this area around evacuation. All the best moving forward. Leanne, thank you very much. I'm sorry for the loss.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Leanne Ross Martin and Ed Martin, they represent 19 families who lost their properties here in the Lacabani wildfires.
The richness of cultures celebrated in film and the action, romance, comedy, and documentaries you love to watch. Fascination Film Festival is coming to Winnipeg, and you're invited. The talents of Asian Canadian and Asian American filmmakers highlighted in one film festival. Connect and get inspired at Fascination Film Festival, May 22nd to 25th, proudly sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
7:21 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to CBC Information Radio, live on location in Lacabani. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or you might be watching on YouTube this morning as the sun's coming up. I want to turn, though, to news of the day here because, as you know, you've been hearing on World Report, MPs are back to work on the Hill this week. And today, the big highlight, King Charles delivering the throne speech. Yesterday in the House of Commons, MPs also voted for a new Speaker of the House. Alex Ballingall spoke with us early this morning all about what's happening in Ottawa, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star.
Hey, good morning.
What are you expecting from the speech from the throne?
I think the broad strokes of what he's going to say, at least what the government will tell him to say, are pretty well known in terms of the Carney government's priorities. You know, tackling the trade war, building what they call nation-building projects as fast as possible. Removing internal trade barriers, all these things that we've heard Carney talk about over and over again. The interesting thing might be, if the King has any sort of his own remarks off the top, or just how he talks about Canada, if he says anything about what's been going on with the United States, things like that to watch for. But in terms of the contents of the sort of the government throne speech, I think we have a generally good idea of what direction the Carney government wants to go in.
And how important is this speech in your view?
I mean, I think it's usually sort of an interesting way for the government to try and set its agenda. And obviously the fact that the King is doing it and it's the monarch doing it for the first time in decades is noteworthy. But, it's largely symbolism, which might matter, at this moment. But it's definitely an interesting spectacle, to say the least.
Switching to things closer to home here, tell us who MPs have chosen as the Speaker of the House. It's a Liberal.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was only Liberals running yesterday, but it was kind of the first act of the new Parliament. They elected Francis Scarpa-Leggia. He's the Montreal area Liberal MP. He's been around on the Hill since 2004, I believe, was his first election. And yeah, they've chosen him. He'll be the new speaker, and I think it's the third speaker we've had in about 3 or 4 years. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. There was a lot of talk yesterday from the speeches and on the Hill about whether there's a need for greater discipline and kind of a crackdown on some of the shenanigans we've seen in the House in recent years. But we'll see how it goes. He definitely was saying that in his own speech that the House of Commons needs to set an example and be worthy of itself as kind of the chamber of Canadian democracy.
Still staying in Ottawa for the NDP, not good news. Yesterday we learned from Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon that they will not be granted official party status because they only have 7 seats, so the minimum is 12. In your view, how significant is that?
Well, it's not really unexpected. I think the government had been signaling and to give them official party status, as I understand it, they would need all the other parties to agree, like the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberals. And the Liberals, at least, had been signaling that they probably weren't going to do it. So it's not entirely a surprise, but significant for the NDP in the sense that, they get more resources, they get more guaranteed spots on committees, staff, salaries, that sort of thing. So it does kind of limit their ability to operate as effectively as they maybe have in the past in Parliament, or at least the resources they get. So I think for them trying to rebuild it is kind of a significant blow.
And just lastly, I want to ask about Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, not in the House yesterday, doesn't currently have a seat. So what kind of opposition party do you think the Conservatives are going to be in this session?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see how Poilievre kind of plays it from the sidelines. I was talking to some other journalists on the Hill yesterday, and we're wondering, given that this is kind of the theater of our daily politics and he's not in it, will he be doing kind of regular press conferences in the foyer of the House of Commons to get his face in the news, get his voice in the news? We're not sure exactly what they're going to do, but aside from that, I think the Conservatives had signaled, at least on certain things, they're willing to work potentially with the government, like on helping them get through the trade war and those types of things. So we'll have to see how it goes, but it'll definitely be an interesting situation to watch for sure.
All right, Alex, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alex Ballingall, I spoke with him early this morning, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. Big day in Ottawa, lots of changes in the speech from the throne coming up later. You can hear it on CBC. Right now, 7:26 a.m., I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to a special edition of the show live in Lacabani. But we next are going to a regular feature in the show. It's time for sports with Scott Regehr. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So let's start with hockey. Minnesota, PWHL champs once again.
They are, after beating Ottawa in, surprise, surprise, overtime yesterday. It's how every game of the series was decided, and in each instance, by a 2-1 scoreline. The Charge are the first Canadian team to appear in a Walter Cup final, and Coach Carla McLeod says despite the loss, the takeaways are positive.
The reality of sport, and you get yourselves an opportunity like this, you're going to feel every emotion, and we're absolutely going to be okay feeling every emotion because they're all true. You're disappointed, of course, because there's something that was right there. You're right in the fight. But what I'm most grateful for our group and our organization is we'll walk away from this incredibly proud. And that will be the lasting feeling.
Someone who can be especially proud, Ottawa goalie Gwyneth Phillips, who made 36 saves yesterday. She was named the playoff MVP. And with the PWHL season behind us, the NHL season is nearing its conclusion. Canada's hopes, of course, rest with the Oilers, who are looking to go up 3-1 on Dallas in the Western final this evening and might have their best defenseman back, Matthias Ekholm, from injury after about a month and a half away.
Let's go to basketball. Canada's best player was back to his best last night.
Was he ever? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like a hot knife through butter, that butter being Minnesota's defense. Shai with 40 points against it, helping Oklahoma City take a commanding lead in the Western final. I think the most impressive part of this, in the previous game, OKC lost by 42 and were humiliated and came back and won this game to show what they're really about. So 3-1 lead for OKC. They can book a spot in the finals with another win tomorrow.
And we cover basketball and hockey, so it only stands to reason we should finish with mountain climbing?
Naturally. Famed Sherpa guide Kami Rita, Marcy, he made history this morning. He summited Mount Everest for a record 31st time. Since Tenzing Norgay helped Sir Edmund Hillary climb Everest back in 1953, Sherpa guides have provided expertise and skills to foreigners looking to conquer the world's tallest peak. They just seldom get credit themselves for doing it. And there could be more summit attempts than ever should a new training technology take hold. Using a xenon gas treatment, British climber Lucas Furtenbach just finished one of the fastest descents we've ever seen. Rather than spending weeks preparing at base camp, Furtenbach's team spent days. Inhaling xenon enhances breathing and the sensation of more lung volume at high altitude. Not everyone is a fan, though. Alan Arnott is an American mountaineer who has summited Everest several times.
There's no shortcuts to the top.
at 29,000 feet. I mean, that altitude, that's where airplanes fly. I think there's a risk that people will take any type of a way to have a shortcut, all the way from, using supplemental oxygen to, pre-acclimatizing to using these, these other aids. They're going to jump to the conclusion that, I can do it too. And that may be a deadly mistake.
As it is, Marcy, around 5 people every year die trying to climb Everest. Nepal's mountaineering department says it's going to investigate the use of xenon gas.
Wild. All right. Thanks a lot, Scott.
You bet.
A couple traffic notes here. Thomas called a collision blocking the curb lane northbound Main and Pioneer. Not too backed up, though, at the call time. Greg driving eastbound on Highway 1 towards Sioux Narrows. He was just past Steinbach, said it wasn't too smoky there. And it seems around the Lacabani area, for sure, where we're sitting, lots of smoke in the air, but it subsided a touch from early this morning. Stay with us. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we've got some cloud cover over Winnipeg. It is 14 degrees. We'll see sun today. A mix of sun and clouds. We're also going to see some haze. A high of 25 with a risk of an afternoon thunderstorm. We begin in Ottawa with a ceremonial act with a political message. King Charles will be taken to Parliament Hill by horse-drawn carriage to deliver the Liberal government's throne speech. The royal couple arrived in Ottawa yesterday.
This I will be put behind the bridge.
King Charles greeting well-wishers after planting a tree at Rideau Hall. In just a few hours, he delivers the speech from the throne, opening a new parliamentary session. The head of the Assembly of First Nations hopes the King's visit to Canada can mark a step forward in the relationship between Indigenous people and the Crown. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak says the two sides have to find a way forward together. She met with the King late yesterday in Ottawa.
First Nations people, we have a long history with him and his family, and to remember how Canada was built. It was built on First Nation territory, and things aren't always perfect, but at the same time, trying to reset the relationship. I think it's such an important time right now.
Many other Indigenous leaders are in Ottawa holding meetings coinciding with the King's visit. They say they too will be watching and listening closely as he reads the throne speech. Now, CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers that speech from the throne. Join Your World Tonight Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen of the House for special coverage. It all begins at 10 o'clock Central right here on CBC Radio 1. An out-of-control wildfire just outside the northern community of Wabodin has prompted officials to declare a local state of emergency. Wabodin's mayor, Reg Mead, says the state of emergency gives them time to prepare in case they need to quickly evacuate.
The whole community is pre-registered for emergency measures, so they have to go into hotels or other places.
At least 50 people were identified as high-priority evacuees, including those with health issues and families with young children. Mead says community members have been asked to keep their bags packed and wait for updates. Now, those wildfires are still impacting the air you breathe. Experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in the short and the long term. Christopher Pascoe is an associate professor at the University of Manitoba's Physiology and Pathophysiology Department.
People will usually experience breathlessness, so difficulty breathing, catching your breath. You may notice that you cough more, have more mucus. If you're somebody who has lung disease, asthma, COPD, you may find that you need to use your medication more or that it's not as effective.
Pascoe says when a special air quality statement or air quality warning is in effect, as they are today, people with health concerns should stay indoors in a well-ventilated space, wear N95 masks, and monitor air quality. A Winnipeg City Councillor wants Mayor Scott Gillingham to take away a civic award given to a local business person. Sherry Rowlands says she's worried about a video she says was reshared online by the Canadian-Palestinian Association of Manitoba regarding the Israel-Hamas war. Winnipeg police say they are investigating that video. The association's president, Ramsey Zeid, is also the owner of Food Fair on Maryland. Zeid recently received a Mayor's Business Improvement Zone award. Rollins wants Mayor Gillingham to rescind that honor.
Mr. Zeid is attempting to have some difficult discussions
with perhaps very imperfect language. But there has to be consequences to that.
Gillingham says Rowland should talk to the West Broadway Biz, which made the nomination. For his part, Zeid says he is seeking legal advice about what Rowland's communicated to the mayor. The PC MLA for Selkirk says the province needs to do more to improve safety at a dangerous intersection in the RM of St. Andrews. Richard Pershot says he has told the government multiple times about the intersection of Highway 8 and 67, but nothing has been done. And last week, an 18-year-old died in a crash there. Pershot says it should never have happened.
I've been in that area a long time. There's no turning lanes in the area. There's a trouble with visibility from buildings in the area and tree lines on certain directions.
Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor says the government is looking at safety improvements, including adding passing lanes on Highway 8. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
7:35 a.m. is the time right now, and let's return to Winnipeg because we're broadcasting live from Lacabani here on Wendigo Road. But Abby's been watching our forecast, and it's time to check in all of the regions this morning. Hi again, Abby.
Hi, Marcy. Looking across the regions, we will see warm temperatures with sunshine mixed with cloudy conditions across board today. We still have that smoke from the fires affecting the north into the southeast corner of the province, but the winds will help clear the air later today. We still have that air quality statement in effect for most of the regions from Gimli, Flin-Flon, Thompson and Churchill. Smoke is causing poor air quality for folks there and reduced visibility, so you want to take care. Conditions in Winnipeg at this time. We are now at 15, mostly cloudy skies. The sun just made its appearance, and we're seeing that golden moment in downtown Winnipeg here. The day will turn mostly sunny. Then we'll see some clouds move in later. There's a small chance of thunderstorms this afternoon. The air will feel a little hazy, and that temperature climbs to 25 later. For the Pembina Valley region, we're seeing similar conditions, 14 degrees at this time. The day is warming up close to 26 with sunshine and clouds. A chance of thunderstorms also in the forecast. Heading west to Brandon, where we have conditions around 8 and 10 degrees in the Westman region. Mainly sunny skies we do have. That's going to stay mostly sunny for most of the day, then turn partly cloudy by the afternoon period. We'll see some haze and the winds will come from the southwest. Highs gets to 24. In Dauphin, we're seeing temperatures hover around 10, 11 in the Parkland region. Today will stay mostly sunny also. Clouds and hazy conditions will develop in the afternoon period. Dauphin would get to 28. In the Interlake region, Gimli, good morning. You are at 14. We have a special air quality statement in effect due to fire causing poor air quality and reduced visibility. Though conditions will improve later as that southwest winds pick up, and it's going to be clearing some of the smoke away from the region. We'll see you warm up to 26. Now in Lacabani, Whiteshell down to Pinal, we're looking at temperatures around 6 degrees at this time. We do have that smoke present in that part of the province causing poor air quality. Warm, dry weather with light winds will keep the smoke in place for today. Expect a mix of sun and clouds for folks in that part of the region. Then the Flin-Flon, Thompson, Churchill, we are seeing similar conditions in that part of the province. We're looking at temperatures around 11 degrees, and most of that part of the province will see highs close to 26 degrees today. But right now, Winnipeg, it is 15 degrees.
Yeah, we need more rain. We're just not going to get it. All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
With an update on traffic, Corey's out here with me, but our traffic line is forwarded. So what's happening out there?
Yeah, just got a call from Debbie. She says yesterday there was a stalled semi just right under the Logan underpass in the right-hand lane, and it's still there. So just heads up, keep left to get around that. Thanks for the call, Debbie. As well, heard about a collision. Thomas called on northbound Main, just right at Pioneer in the curb lane. Keep left to get around that. He said it shouldn't be too backed up because of that. As well, Greg called to say he was heading east towards Sioux Narrows. Just past Nineback, he said it wasn't too smoky actually, so let's hope that stays as he gets further east and closer to the fires in eastern Manitoba here. I hope it's not too smoky later on, so we'd be happy to get a call with an update from that there. If you see anything else going on though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey. Well, next on our special live broadcast from the Lacabani wildfire zone, where we're sitting on the porch overlooking the fields at the Carkland farm, we're going to hear from a man who we came upon yesterday when we were in the area. He was out in his yard nearby Wendigo Road, just around the bend. His property is snuggled in behind an RV community, and it overlooks a wide expanse of the water here. So we spotted him underneath a line of clothing that was drying in the Manitoba breeze off the lake. His strawberry printed Crocs were hard to miss. Steve Grift, though, spent 3 days wearing the same clothes just 2 weeks ago because he wasn't here when the evacuation call happened. As you'll hear, he has survivor's guilt for the lives and the properties lost, but he also has a deep appreciation for the firefighters that saved his house.
Here's the fire. This is all the cabins down the road.
Wow.
And here's where we are. And we're actually standing right here on this point.
And it's all saved.
It's all saved. Apparently the firefighters stopped it right here on the road. If you go back, you'll see about a 25-foot part of the bush where the firefighters cut it out. And that's when it jumped over to the other side of the road and stayed over there.
I can see why you live here, Steve. Like, look at this. Come out to the dock here. So what were you pointing out across there? Like, that's fire all there. You could watch it coming.
The bay is completely gone for fire-wise. But there were some people who were able to save their places through work or luck or who knows what. Because if you look around on the far point, there's still cabins.
We're just walking out in the dock, out over the water here, and we're pointing across.
The far point of the bay?
Yes.
All the bush on the other side of that cabin is burnt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this bay, I would assume this bay and a creek over there is what really turned the fire. Yeah. And unfortunately, it went down Wendigo Road and took out everything right to Grosdon. I haven't gone too far down there. It's too many friends that live down there.
You can't even go back down there?
Well, one walk. Good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's too many people that, you've had drinks with, and their places are gone, right? But yeah, so somehow the firefighters saved this entire trailer park. And it's just amazing. I could imagine the conditions they were here under. I ran into them about 4 days after, and it just amazes me that they could ever stop it. But one of the biggest problems that occurred was a lot of people didn't get the notification to get out.
Now, this is the Connect system. We know in rural areas all over Manitoba, you sign up for them, right?
Foreign to all of us. We always knew it as the emergency notification system.
Okay.
And a lot of us thought we signed up for it. I know I had signed up for it. I got notifications, but I wasn't here.
Where were you?
I was farming with my brother-in-law out in Beaujeu. He has a farm out there.
And then what did you see or hear on your phone?
Well, I would get the notifications. I'd get a phone call telling us an update on the fire that started down by the highway. And every 15 minutes or so, it was moving very fast. It would be like, okay, this area needs to be evacuated. This area needs to evacuate. And then when it got to this area, that we were going to be evacuated, I've been calling my neighbors, and they were getting updates. And then the last update I got from them was, get out now. That was literally the EMO sent the update, get out now. So I told them to get out now. And I know one neighbor drove down Wendigo, had to turn around because he hit the fire, and then he had to go at Lagsden Way. Mm-hmm. And there's stories of people coming out of Grosdon Point that went in the ditch because they couldn't see, and guys got burns on their legs. And unfortunately, the couple that passed away are just across the bay from us here. Yeah. And they got caught in the fire as well.
How long have you lived out here, Steve?
Part-time since 2002. Yeah. More full-time now since I retired, but yeah.
What's the community like out here? Obviously, you got a lot of seasonal people, but you got a lot of people that, have owned properties here their whole lives, right?
There's a lot of, especially more into the farm area. There's a lot of this area, like these people came out here in the 1950s and 60s when this area was developed. And down the road, there's generational people that lost their cabins.
So you were talking about the Connect system. It worked for you.
It worked for me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got the notifications, every one of them. And what I learned going through the Connect, getting the notifications, is that they're apparently posting them on Facebook at the same time. Okay. So I don't do Facebook. Yeah. So I quickly got logged onto my Facebook that I never go on and started following the notifications that they're at the same time. Yeah. And we're able to notify the neighbors when they had to get out.
So part of the challenge was some people thought they might have had that system set up, and maybe they didn't.
Thought they had set up the system.
So let me ask you this, because there's lessons out of this. And I know that when we talked to, the province, and just a few weeks ago, they tested their emergency system. Okay. And I think everybody got the meh on their phones.
None of the notifications were that.
Does that happen when your system went off? Was it really loud like that? And
No,
is the same?
it was just a phone call. The from the EMO, close to the airport, you hear those helicopters all day long.
You might be able to hear them. Yeah, they're still water bombing.
It was just a phone call. There was no literally the notification for tornado or stuff like that, because we've had those notifications where they test it like twice a year and it's really loud and annoying. None of that.
Do you think there should be?
Absolutely. I understand that this fire moved far and fast, so everybody was making catch up with the notifications. But perhaps if there's a fire near you, you should be notified with the emergency, like the crazy loud, wake up signal. But yeah, I do know that a lot of my neighbors, nobody got the notifications, and they really did think they were signed up for it. There's stories of people down the road where a guy's making breakfast and his neighbor's banging on his door to get out, and they just get out.
What do you think the future is here moving forward? What's your hope? We're still very much in the middle of this crisis.
The future is, I hope all my neighbors rebuild down there, even though it's such a dramatically different place now. Everybody's a little bit on pins and needles still. You're very aware of the pain that a lot of other people are going through. Yeah. But at the same time, you're so happy that you weren't part of that. Yeah. So my wife uses the word guilt, and she's right. You have a sense of guilt because your place was saved. And it was basically because the wind was blowing the other way for most part. I really hope that in the future the notification process is a lot better, because even now cell service out here is horrible, like horrible. If you're on the wrong side of a piece of granite, your phone's useless. Almost everybody uses Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi calling. I would assume there's 10 kilometers of phone lines that are damaged, but how many people have hard lines nowadays? Right. So if we had a better cell service here, a cell tower.
Do you have any message for the firefighters or those people?
Oh my God. Now I'm going to cry. Like, we see the bombers practicing all the time in our bay, because we have a nice big beautiful bay around the corner, and you always go, practice, practice, practice. And I would assume the local volunteer fire department has never dealt with something like this. And for what they did, it just blows me away. And the hydro, they put in probably 10 kilometers of poles in under a week. And all the volunteers in town, like you sign up for this stuff and you go for some training, and you never think you're gonna have to use it like this. And everybody came together. Like, it was amazing. And it's not just that one time. Like, the firefighters have been in the bush and are still in the bush fighting the hot spots. And that's going to be all year. Apparently there's peat moss fires back in the bush, and that burns forever. There's no rest. They've all gone now to Nopaming and Bird River, and that fire is still massive, and it's no rain in sight. And it just amazes me. Like, we had volunteers here from White Shell, from Lacabani, from Fort Alexander, from Pinawa. They have the nuclear facility in Pinawa. Mm-hmm. They have their own fire department. They were part of the volunteers. Like, everybody just came together.
Explains the sign on the way into town at one of the garden centers just simply said, "Thank you, firefighters and EMS." Do you see those sentiments around?
Yeah. What they were able to do, and with no notice, is amazing.
So that was a conversation we had with Steve Grift, who lives here in the arm of Lacabani. We met up with him yesterday, just up the way here on Wendigo Road around the bend. Now, we did interview a request with the fire chief here in Lacabani. They did request privacy right now, but Corey, they sent a statement. It shares some of the same sentiment that we just heard from Steve, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Earl Simmons, the chief, here's what he wrote to us. He says, as you can probably appreciate, this unprecedented fire was extremely challenging for the members of the Lacabani Fire Department and Wildfire Service. The fire was extraordinary in sheer scale and destruction. It has been very heartbreaking to all the members of the fire department, with the loss of life and property of our friends and neighbors. It's for this reason, he says, I ask for the respect of privacy from the media during this time of community grieving. He also said, I'd like to take this opportunity to send out our sincere appreciation to the Pinawa Fire Department, the Canadian Nuclear Laboratory Fire Department, Manitoba Wildfire Service, the Manitoba Hydro Fire Department, Psyching Fire Department, and the local local emergency management coordinator, for all the assistance they provided to us in our time of need. We're also grateful to the incredible people of the community, along with the people of Manitoba, for all their unwavering support during this tragic event. Provincial spokesperson also shared that connecting with any firefighters, water bombers, or pilots would have to wait right now. The spokesperson said our staff are very focused on the hard work, on work at hand, and if they're not working, they're resting to be ready to work again on their next shift.
Yeah, and that was a quote from the provincial spokesperson, as you said. So just wanted to pass that along. However, stay with us because in a moment you are going to hear what it is like to be out fighting fires such as the ones that we've been covering here in Lacabani, the aftermath, and those that are still active in the province. So that interview is still straight ahead.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news. Your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
10 to 8 right now. Thanks for joining us on our special broadcast from the Carkland Farm. We're out in the porch overlooking the fields and the trees and the sun. And if you look just the right way, you could almost forget there was devastating fire here and loss of life. But then you look around, and right behind me across Wendigo Road, you see just a foundation where a home was burned. And of course, the couple that passed away lived also just off Wendigo Road, which is, a turnoff that we can see from up here. It's hard to imagine firefighters being out there, right? I mean, when you're fighting a fire, it might come down to just digging a ditch as fast as you can. But what's that like when it's smoky and it's smelly and your lungs are, you're inhaling all that into your lungs and your system? Well, next, let's look at a different part of the province and talk to a firefighter. When hundreds of people were being forced out of Piney 2 weeks ago, so Piney's, of course, about 2 hours southwest of here where we're sitting in Lacabani, Greg Zimmerman was one of the firefighters who went in there to protect the community. Greg and his crew specialize in structural fires, so his job was to prevent that massive fire from getting close to the homes or businesses in the RM. In the 47 years he spent working as a firefighter, he's seen his fair share of devastation, from protecting a town from burning down to fighting flames within the forest. He says most firefighters will have to battle a wildfire at some point in their career, and he's here to talk about what it is like. He's also Altona's fire chief currently and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's interesting, Mr. Zimmerman, because you also have experience in BC, and I've been saying through all this crisis in Manitoba that this feels different in Manitoba. Just, we're in Lacabani, but I mean all over the province right now, and Nopaming, and if a lot of people are talking about, like, wow, are we turning into BC? Why do you say that at some point, we're going to have to, firefighters are going to have to be ready to fight a wildfire?
Well, I think you're going to have to take a look at the last few years, and there has been a shift to seeing much larger and more devastating fires than there has been in the past. Some of the experts are saying it's a little bit to do with the climate change and the fact we're not getting enough moisture on the ground like we used to get in the past.
What was the weekend like in Piney when you were out there at the heart of it?
We were okay when we were out there. It wasn't so bad. It was the first day we were preparing and drawing our defensive lines to halt the fire from coming into, oh my gosh, I forgot the name. To come into the town. And, fortunately for us, it happened to rain that day. And the next day we got very busy picking up all the hot spots before they had a chance to flare back up.
What's it feel like when you're trying to fight flames and then you do realize something's going to be lost and you have to switch in a different direction? Like, what does it emotionally feel like for you out there?
If you're involved and the fire rolls over and gets into a town or a lot of the cottages, it's a very sad feeling when you watch it. When you look at it at the time of the fire, you don't think too much about it. You're very busy and you're thinking about lots of other things like trying not to get burned yourself. But when it's done and you look and you see like the foundation, and you look and you see swing sets or toys in the front yard from maybe a family that had children, and you just see foundation after foundation after foundation. It's very, very sad and very draining on an individual.
How long are you standing out there? Because I'm just imagining, like, I can't imagine you must be out there for hours and hours because you're literally like digging and spraying and like take me to sort of a front line when you're fighting this.
Well, if you're an actual wildfire firefighter and you're on the front line, it is an awful lot of work. I very much admire those people because it's a very, very tough and grueling job. You're out there doing backbreaking work. You've got a shovel or you've got a Pulaski. You're either trenching or digging something up, or you're packing a pump and looking for a little pond to get some water out of. But you're out there all day long. It's not like now I'm doing structural firefighting, where once you get really hot and you get thirsty, you can go sit in the air-conditioned vehicle. When you're out in the bush, you're stuck in the bush. There are no amenities. There is no air-conditioned room. When you get hot, you're hot and you stay hot. And it's very, very tough to be out there. It's very, very tough job. You also don't have the availability of getting backup. If you get a fire and you know that it's a little bigger than what you can handle and you're working on it, and you send in the call, in the structural fire department, that's usually the neighboring town drives there. But if you're out in the forest, you're probably going to have to wait for them to find a crew and get a chopper and get them out there. So it takes quite a bit of time to get your help out there. So you just have to work that much harder to keep it going to try and stop the fire.
I know you've described it as adrenaline, but not excitement. I wonder how well you have to understand wind, and if you've ever had a close call when it's a fire just maybe switched direction. You've had a lot of experience, as we mentioned, including in BC.
Yes, I know. Like my biggest fire in BC, I think it was 2005. We'd set up monitors, with water, and then the big can of like 750 gallons per minute on a straight stream, and you aim it at the fire, and the fire was just so large that the water never even touched the fire. It vaporized before it got there. It's just an immense amount of heat, and at that point in time, there's just nothing you can do to stop it.
What would you say to the firefighters across Manitoba right now, and also the volunteer firefighters that maybe are trying to process even what they're going through and maybe what they've been through in the cases of those that are now having a much needed rest because they're not called out, about how to process all of this for themselves as human beings?
Well, I like to tell everybody comes out and works on a call. Everybody's out there. They're doing a great job. They're out there obviously because they're trying to help people and save property. And probably the best thing to do is, I know sometimes you can't save the property and it burns down, but stop and concentrate on what you have saved and what you have done. It's a pretty good feeling if you stop and take everything in and then realize that you did stop the fire from coming into town, or you did stop it from getting into a little cottage area. So you done a great service to everybody else, and pretty much everybody in Manitoba appreciates the job they're all doing. So, think of the positive, not the negative.
I'm sure it won't be the last time we talk, unfortunately, Greg Zimmerman. We're just at the start of a season here, so hoping for the best and hoping for rain. Take care. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yes, thank you very much. You have a good day.
You too. That was one of the challenges in Piney, of course. As he was saying, they did eventually get rain, but they were standing there hoping for it because they were having an issue with water, not as much available when they were battling just out there literally in those fire-resistant overalls. Greg Zimmerman is currently the chief of Altona and the Rhineland Emergency Services. To Heather Wells now with our news headlines.
Well, the head of the Assembly of First Nations hopes King Charles' visit to Canada marks a step forward in the relationship between Indigenous people and the Crown. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak says the two sides have to find a way to get together. She did meet with the King late yesterday in Ottawa. The PC MLA for Selkirk says the province needs to do more to improve safety at a dangerous intersection in the arm of St. Andrews. Richard Pershot says he's told the government multiple times about the intersection of Highways 8 and 67. Last week, an 18-year-old died in a collision there. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 8:30.
Well, the farm we're broadcasting from today is a place CBC actually visited last fall as part of Communities in Focus. It's a generational historic property, and we're going to hear about one of the original pieces of this property that was lost in the fire. Stay with us for that story. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Call us if you need on the commuter line, 788-3093, as we continue our special broadcast live from the Carkland Farm here on Wendigo Road.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
The American actor Courtney B. Vance is incredibly accomplished. He's played everyone from Johnny Cochran to Cobra Bubbles in the new Lilo and Stitch movie.
I need to find out what kind of threat we're dealing with.
Courtney will be here to talk about how he thinks growing up in the middle of the 1967 Detroit riots made him who he is today. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Humans have always been curious about what animals are saying to each other. Well, now scientists are using artificial intelligence to map animal calls with the hope that understanding animals will boost conservation efforts. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Angie Seth. Today in Ottawa, there will be pomp, there will be circumstance, and the speech from the throne will be a truly royal affair, full of symbolism aimed at our neighbours to the south. King Charles opens a new session of Parliament in just a few hours. Janice McGregor is standing by for us in Ottawa, waiting for the King to arrive. So Janice, today is all about that messaging. What kind of message are you anticipating in this throne speech?
Angie, because of who's reading this speech and the global audience that brings, every word is going to be weighed for signals, including whatever personal words King Charles shares off the top before laying out his preview of the Canadian government's agenda. Today's also a bit of a civics lesson, a reminder of what makes Canada's system of constitutional monarchy different. In a way, the key takeaway is intended to be the pomp and circumstances. The symbolism is the substance. Canada, in a period of transformational change, even the throne is newly designed. Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon was reflecting on that yesterday.
Look, it's a singular occasion, an historic occasion, and it honors the very origins of our country.
Also listening in the room today are going to be several past prime ministers as well. A reminder that while elected governments come and go, the continuity that the Crown represents is part of what makes Canada's democratic institutions so strong.
Now, these are still the priorities of a minority government, so there still will be plenty of opposition to what we're going to hear today, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about Canada's system. It has a loyal opposition. Today's speech, not an edict. Vigorous debates about its contents are going to begin, frankly, before the King's plane even takes off. But one of the challenges is going to be making sure that even as Canada asserts its sovereignty vis-a-vis the U.S., it isn't also sparking sovereignty movements in specific regions of the country. Here's Alberta Conservative Shuvaloy Majumdar.
We want progress for this country on its resource potential, on the potential of the West. I think it would go a long ways in dealing with a lot of the pressure of resentment that we're experiencing in Alberta and elsewhere right now.
Mark Carney wants to, perhaps has to, move quickly in this short spring sitting. Conservatives say if he implements measures consistent with their agenda, they're going to help.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
And CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers the speech from the throne. Join your World Tonight's Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen of CBC Radio's The House for special coverage. Tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern on CBC Radio, CBC Listen, Sirius, and the CBC News app. Well, one priority expect to hear a lot about in the throne speech is increasing free trade between Canadian provinces. It's something British Columbia and Yukon are getting a head start on. They signed an agreement last week to work on connecting their electricity grids. As Amelia John reports, the project falls in line with the Prime Minister's goal to make Canada an energy superpower.
BC Premier David Eby and Yukon Premier Ronj Pillay signed the Memorandum of Understanding for the Yukon-BC Grid Connect, calling it a generational investment and a way to boost clean energy supply. Yukon's grid is isolated and sometimes relies on diesel, while BC often has a surplus of hydroelectricity, which it sells. Barry Penner is a former BC Environment Minister and now head of the Energy Futures Institute.
The idea has been bouncing around for at least 2 decades, maybe more. You have to ask yourself, why has it not come to fruition? And that's because it faces daunting challenges, a combination of distance and cost.
Mark Zacharias is an advisor with Clean Energy Canada and says the agreement is timely as the federal government looks to invest in energy initiatives.
And if the U.S. is no longer going to be a reliable customer or a reliable supplier, it does make sense to connect provinces and territories a lot more in terms of the grid.
Penner says it could cost well over $1 billion to connect the BC and Yukon grids, while Zacharias estimates it could take 10 to 15 years to complete. The two premiers say they'll seek federal support and work with First Nations who may be impacted. Amelia John, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says it has begun distributing food to Palestinians, and it has released photographs to prove operations in Gaza are underway. This aid operation, however, is controversial. It's been endorsed by Israel, which says it is trying to keep humanitarian supplies away from Hamas, but it's been criticized by the United Nations and other aid groups. They accuse Israel of trying to use food as a weapon when Gaza is at risk of famine. Russia's defense ministry says its troops have taken control of more territory in eastern Ukraine, and at the same time, it is accusing Ukraine of trying to derail peace talks. Here's Kremlin spokesperson Maria Zakharova.
Фиксируем деструктивные заявления Зеленского, которые
She says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been issuing destructive statements that blame Russia for prolonging the war. Zakharova says Russia is actually working to draft terms for a peace accord between the two countries. Well, the lawyers watching the trial of the 5 former world junior hockey players say the Crown's job has gotten a bit harder. The judges in the sexual assault trial has ruled a key piece of evidence inadmissible. The 5 former team members have all been charged with sexual assault following a Hockey Canada gala in 2018. They've all pleaded not guilty. CBC's Karen Pauls is covering the trial.
And Howden down and hurt.
Vegas Golden Knights forward Brett Howden was knocked unconscious and had to be carried out on a stretcher during a game in March 2022.
That is a scary hit.
Whether or not that contributed to Howden's memory loss, as lawyers suggested Monday in court, he's been unable to provide details the Crown was counting on, which is why she's tried so hard, in vain, to get a text message Howden wrote about Dylan Dubé slapping the buttocks of the complainant admitted into evidence.
The Crown has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Dubé was in fact the person who allegedly slapped EM without consent.
Lisa Kelly is an associate professor at Queen's University Faculty of Law, where she teaches criminal law and evidence.
And if the Crown cannot satisfy the finder of fact, in this case the trial judge, the rightful legal outcome should be an acquittal.
Former senior Crown attorney Michael Korestein agrees. Howden's memory gaps and the exclusion of the texts weakens the case against Dubé.
This evidence had the ability to corroborate a very damaging portion of the complainant's evidence. It certainly decreases the likelihood that Mr. Dubé would be found guilty.
Kelly says this trial is a reminder about why it's so important for criminal cases to be tried in a timely fashion before the evidence deteriorates. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Despite a rebound last year in venture capital for Canadian startups, investors appear to be growing more cautious. Nearly $8 billion was poured into Canadian startups, but the ongoing trade war with the U.S. has led to much of that funding drying up. And as Philippe Dumotery reports, this could have some long-term consequences.
And for that reason, I'm up.
Popularized by shows like CBC's Dragon's Den, venture capital is now harder to come by, especially for early-stage Canadian startups.
We see that the investors don't like uncertainties.
Geneviève Boutillier leads the investment branch of the Business Development Bank of Canada. A new BDC report shows 1/3 of the country's venture capital comes from American investors who might choose to move their dollars to the U.S.
So if Canadian investors don't step in, we are at risk of losing our champions.
The biggest impact of the tariffs is the uncertainty.
Kim Furlong is the CEO of the Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. Her organization's data show less than $1.3 billion have been invested in the first 3 months of 2025, spread out over far fewer deals than in previous years.
What I would love is to see more, for example, of Canadian pension plans who have the ability to write these larger checks come in the later so that the value at the time of exit goes back to Canadian pensioners and stays in Canada and creates more wealth at home versus leaving the country.
But successful exits have been down in the past few years, with no Canadian companies going public in 2024 and only one the year before. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, how's this for a serenade in outer space? Blue Danube, a waltz by Austrian composer Johann Strauss. He was born June 3rd, 200 years ago, and to mark that anniversary, the European Space Agency will beam this version of the waltz into the cosmos. Within 23 hours, the signals will be heard as far away as NASA's Voyager 1. It's the world's most distant spacecraft, 15 billion miles away from Earth. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
You have any message for the firefighters or those people?
Oh my God. Now I'm going to cry. The work they did. Like, we see the bombers practicing all the time in our bay because we have a nice, big, beautiful bay around the corner. And you always go, practice, practice, practice. And I would assume the local volunteer fire department has never dealt with something like this. And all the volunteers in town, like you sign up for this stuff and you go for some training and you never think you're going to have to use it like this. And everybody came together. Like, it was amazing.
Well, we're hearing some of those amazing stories, the heartbreak and the hope out of Lacabani this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We are live in the RM of Lacabani, just on Wendovo Road. A lot of people in the province know the name of this road because this is where some of the worst devastation happened. We're sitting on the porch at the Carklands farm and we're watching the beautiful sunrise here in Manitoba. We're going to talk specifically about what happened here just 2 weeks ago when some of the scariest moments were happening when the wildfire was raging in this part of the province. Reva Carkland sprung into action, and we're hearing that from a lot of people. They say Reva texted, she called, she knocked on my door, she saved my life. Some people were doing yard work with their earbuds in. She's going to talk to us, and we'll also talk about this historic farm. There were some losses here, but also firefighters saved this farmhouse. It wouldn't be standing here here today for us to broadcast from if they hadn't been here. So that's coming up as our special broadcast from Lacabani continues. The time right now is 8:11, and let's return to Winnipeg. Heather Wells has your news headlines developing on this Tuesday morning. Heather.
Good morning. Well, an out-of-control wildfire just outside the northern community of Winnipeg has prompted officials there to declare a local state of emergency. Winnipeg's mayor says the state of emergency gives them time to prepare in case they need to quickly evacuate. Now, wildfires burning in various parts of the province are still impacting the air you breathe. Once again today, southeast Manitoba has an air quality warning, while parts of the north are under a special air quality statement. Experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in the short and in the long term. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather. Well, let's get into some of those warnings about the smoke and the actual conditions. Abby is here with a look at our quick forecast.
Good morning once again across the province. Most of the regions already in the teens. We're looking at 12, 13s, 14s, and even 15s in most of the regions this morning. We'll enjoy warm temperatures, a mix of sun and clouds, while the smoke and haze will be lingering in the northern parts of the province. I checked the forecast. I checked the chat right now. That smoke has moved into the Churchill region. So folks in Churchill will be feeling the smoke in that part of the province. That air quality statement is still in effect for folks up there. For Winnipeg at this time, it is 14 degrees. The sun is out. As we get through the day, temperatures will climb close to 26 degrees. Keep in mind, there's a chance of thunderstorms sometime this afternoon. And similar conditions we're seeing in most regions down south, Brandon, Dauphin, all the way down to even the Riding Mountain area, where we'll see temperatures hit 26, 27 with that chance of thunderstorms sometime this afternoon. But right now, we're seeing temperatures around 14 and 15s in most of the regions.
We have some issues on the commute. Corey Funk's up here in Lacabani, but our phone's forwarded, so we're hearing from all over the province.
Yeah, we actually just got a call. The Louise Bridge is actually still closed. Originally, it was actually supposed to be, it was closed over the weekend for construction. It was supposed to reopen yesterday, but I think some people are getting caught off guard when they go to drive over today. So it's actually very backed up if you are trying to cross the Louise Bridge through Point Douglas or through the Elmwood area there. I just looked. It is supposed to now, it was extended now. It's closed now until the 28th. Don't know exactly what time, but so it will be closed tomorrow as well. Just heads up, that's part of your commute as well. Northbound Main, right before Portage Main or Pioneers, they say. The right lane blocked by a collision there. Just got a call from St. Vital Import. Keep left together around that. It is starting to get a little bit backed up there if you're going northbound Main right before Portage and Main there. If you see anything else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, when we arrived here at the Carkland Farm yesterday, I just want to bring you here where we're to the property. We were first greeted by Drew Hazori, who is a partner of the homeowner Riva Carkland. We're going to hear from Riva live in a moment. But he started pointing out just how close this place was to not being standing this morning.
There was a big limb coming off the oak tree. We think, as far as we can tell, our best guess is that the water bombers spotted the fire in the yard and hit the tree with a direct hit with water, because the limb was broken when we got here, but there's no sign of axe or saw or any other reason that limb would have come down, because the fire hadn't made it that far up and it wasn't burnt all the way through.
Yeah.
So we think that was part of the way they saved the house.
Wow. So this tree obviously used to extend, it's like half a tree now. It's split right down the middle, that big old tree. Farmhouse, I can't describe the views out here. Really. The nature and the beautiful trees that are still green, and there's a little creek in the front yard there. And Corey and I were remarking on now the springtime's bringing up greenery, but it's coming out of the ash. Yeah. Like when you're driving up the road, it's such a strange thing.
It almost, we were talking the other day, it almost feels offensive that it's coming up this quick. It's almost like there's a piece of reverence that's missing.
Yeah.
The field behind the barn here, as you can see, it's starting to look green now, but this was, as of 4 days ago, it was completely black all the way to the tree line over there.
How do you feel when you turn this way and you see the house still standing?
It brought me to tears when Riva sent me the text message of a photo. Some of her friends are on the fire team, and one of their wives sent her a photo after the fire had made it through here, showing the house, and I think we all got teary.
Are we in a moment still of obviously absorbing this, do you think, when you think about how the community is going to move forward?
Oh, absolutely. I think people will be absorbing it for a very long time. This is one of the strongest communities I've ever known. People have known each other since the womb. Their grandparents knew each other, their parents knew each other, and I think the sentiment that I have witnessed is a lot of heartbreak, the recognition of a lot of change. But more importantly, I've seen a community come together to support each other in really powerful ways, from just the small things of helping people out with food and clothing and shelter to some of the bigger things. We're getting calls from, people saying, where do I buy a gift certificate for this person who lost everything? And we've got some neighbors here that have offered up their home to anybody for as long as necessary. So there's just an amazing community.
That's Drew Hazori talking to us yesterday when we arrived at the Carkland Farm. Now, at the entrance to this property where we're broadcasting from the porch here today, there's a wooden sign. It's one of the original signs. It says simply the Carklands of Latonia. This property looks a little different, though, when CBC was first here last fall. So we were learning about this farm as part of Communities in Focus. It spans 4 generations. A barn, though, that was part of that story, and you might be seeing footage of it on our YouTube this morning. It was actually listed in the Manitoba Historical Society's archives as an example of the construction style used by Latvian settlers. Well, that barn was lost in the wildfire. It had once been visited by the Latvian ambassador to Canada, in fact, but now this is, it's gone. Twisted up burnt metal now, and just beams that look like they should be thick and sturdy. Am I okay to touch that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just completely, look at this. This should be a huge 8-inch beam or something, and the fire, it's just ashing under my little runner here. So it has been reduced to a mess of huge beams turned black and brittle, a pile of ash, twisted metal. It was a late edition roof. That barn was built by Peter Carklin and his neighbors in the early 1900s. He was Reva Carklin's great-grandfather. This morning, Reva is here to talk more about her experience during the fire. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for having us here. You actually, when we called out to say we were thinking of coming in the area, you actually said before we asked that we could broadcast from your porch.
Yeah.
I'm hearing from a lot of your friends and neighbors that some of your experience during this fire was notifying them. Take me to those moments. Where were you when you realized I got to start telling people to get out of here?
It's a crazy thing because I'm normally working on Tuesday at 11 a.m. and I wasn't that 2 weeks ago Tuesday. I was getting ready to leave for my sister's wedding in the States, and I was packing and I was cleaning and I was delivering my trays of plants to Dorothy across the street. And it was when I left her place. She was going to water my plants and take care of them while I was away. I left her place and I walked out the door and I saw the smoke and I smelled the smoke. The location of my driveway was a perfect vantage point to see the billows of smoke getting bigger and bigger and closer and closer. And that's when I started making phone calls and texting people and saying, this looks big, this looks enormous, the wind is strong, get ready, and then eventually get out now.
Tell me a little bit about your family's history on this property. I mentioned a bit, 4 generations. Everyone's just heard what happened to the historic barn. What did that feel like when you realized it was gone? How did you find out it was gone?
You know, I, like you had mentioned before, we're fairly well connected with a small community and friends and family on fire crews and on hydro crews. And I had a little rumor circling that maybe not every building survived on the property. I was really hoping it was not the barn. Like you mentioned as well, the Latvian ambassador has been here. It's a really a staple of the farm. It was amazing to have you guys here in October to do the story on the farm and highlight the barn and the construction and the historical significance. And turns out the rumors were true. It was the barn that caught fire and burned down. Really, really definitely an emotional reaction. We're thankful that it wasn't absolutely everything on the farm like it was for so many people just further north down the road.
Yeah. So that was Gary Sololak and Emily Brass out here. Actually, we have footage we're able to share with you of I guess capturing the barn from when they were here last. You have kept some original homesteads in the property and your house is here. There's this incredible story you shared about actually getting a text, because remember here, volunteer firefighters are friends and neighbors here. Mm-hmm. And you actually got a text like, we held your house. It's literally like holding a line, right? What does that feel like?
The text I got said the barn was gone, but a tremendous effort was put in to save the home. And it was just like, wow, like the people knew this is where Reva lives. People knew this is the Carklin homestead. Like the firefighters fighting this are friends of my dad and uncles and aunts. It's an incredible feeling to see the community come together, and it's their job to fight fires, but the emotional connection they must have had just knowing all the people in this area, I can't imagine what that would have been like for them as well.
There's a chicken coop back here that also takes us to a point of a story. There was a moment in between all of this where you realized you might be able to get in and save the chickens. So tell me what you did here, because this was in the height of when everything was like
Yes.
black smoke and still very much involved, right?
When I heard that the barn probably had burned down, I thought, well, if the chickens survived a wildfire, now just to dehydrate or starve to death, is there any way I can get a firefighter, a hydro worker, somebody to check if they're still alive or give them food and water just in the interim? And we did. We had a phone call from a firefighter who told me they went in and they watered and fed the chickens. But then what was I going to do with them now? Because we were evacuated for 8 days and they can't have no food and no water for 8 days. And I went to the roadblock at 313 at the highway there, and I waited until somebody was available to give me a police escort to come to the property to evacuate 120 chickens. So there was
like into a flatbed of a truck. I saw a video
into the back of my truck, and we closed the lid and we drove them off to my friend's farm on Riverland Road for a little holiday for them for 8 days. It was just wild.
And now they're back in. That's actually an original coop that your ancestors used. That still stands.
I don't know how the firefighters must have protected that building, because the fire was literally inches from the edge of that dry old 100-year-old log building. So there had to have been some firefighting action to protect that building.
I was looking across the field here and all the greenery, and you can see sort of just the faded red barn back in there where the chickens are. Can't hear them. They're not up yet, maybe. As I mentioned, people have been thanking you as we went around here yesterday and meeting folks and such. You've been here a long time. So is your family. You're really known in this area. But who do you want to thank today?
Oh, the firefighters, the hydro fire department, every single first responder that was on the front lines in this entire neighborhood. I mean, if it weren't for them, there would have been so much more loss in so many places. And there was so much loss a little further north. And it's just incredible to see what their efforts have been able to protect. Thanks is never enough. I mean, as morbid as it sounds, I'm probably going to give some of the chickens that were saved when they turn into meat chickens. They will get gifted to
it's farming. That's all right. It doesn't sound morbid. We get that.
They will get gifted to some first responders. So spoiler alert, there's some fresh chicken coming people's way in July or so.
That's such a rural thing. When I first worked in rural Manitoba, I didn't understand why in the newsroom I'd get call page to the front desk and people would gift me food, meat. For doing stories, and it really is. It's a share and share food, and we're in a rural farming community here. People might be wondering if they've been hearing today's show, because we're getting near news time at 8:30, but they might wonder why we haven't talked about the couple who died here. And they did die really right here up the road. I want to acknowledge we're respecting the privacy of the family as they continue to absorb what happened. There has been a GoFundMe started for Richard and Sue Noel, who did die and live here for a long time, and for their family members. So I just really want to acknowledge that. Some of your family members lost everything. We've been talking about across the street, just the foundation there. That was one of your family members. We'll respect their privacy too. But I'm curious whether or not you think that they or others might rebuild, and what your thoughts are on that.
These are multi-generational family properties, and a lot of those conversations are ongoing, and it's really, really, it's not just the stuff in a house that is gone. It's the memories attached to the 100 years that my family's across the road. Everything is just rubble there. There's, the sign that says Gibbs Point that was spared. I mean, that is just such a special little piece.
Is that still here? Yeah, Corey's going to grab it for us. If people missed this earlier in the show, this is crazy. This is a lovely little story. This wooden sign that has this dog on it says Gibbs Point, and it's got a picture of a dog because you always dive off the dock. You found this yesterday when you were over there?
It was actually Dorothy herself, a cousin neighbor across the road, and her sister. This was made by a family friend because Gibbs, the dog, dove off the end of the point to go for a swim and get treats when they'd go around the dock. The field is burnt. The property is charred. The house is rubble, and this sign was hanging in the field.
How important are things like this? So there's this sign, the Arlington Sports Club sign I was at earlier. Little baskets of flowers being left by people. It all looks like ash and these bright purple flowers. Even people posting pictures on Lacabani and loving it Facebook of an otter scratching his back on the dock. How important are these moments amidst what's behind us, which is felled trees and so much change?
I think these little items are going to be what give people hope and the courage to rebuild. I mean, it's a small kind of worn wooden sign, and bringing that smile to their face and going okay, this is a little bit of joy that we've got in this moment. Maybe we can rebuild. And it's 2 weeks ago feels like an eternity ago, but also yesterday. So the rebuilding conversations will be ongoing, and I really hope everybody does, because this is a special community, and everybody's really, really, really close. It's more of a family than just a neighborhood.
Just last, what do you hope is learned by what happened here?
Don't take your friends and neighbors for granted is what I feel like I've learned. Maybe that came out wrong, but I friends and neighbors that I didn't realize would reach out and come there and step in and step up and just be, how can I help? What can I do? You know, those relationships that you might just take for granted, those are really important things that should be nurtured.
Poignant words in this moment, and especially as we acknowledge that while this wildfire is under control, we very much have things, as you've been hearing in the news this morning, that are in different points of crisis across the province. Riva, thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank
Appreciate
you for coming. Thank you.
That is Riva Karklin, our host today. Our studio has been her front porch of her farmhouse as we broadcast from her family's generational home here on Wendigo Road. Well, I want to give a couple thank yous before the news here. We've had lovely treats that they tried to donate, and we said, nope, we're going to pay for them, please. This is to support a business in Lacabani. So Angie was awesome yesterday. They weren't even open. Grand's Bakery in Lacabani. So we picked up some early morning treats for our guests. I also want to thank, of course, Riva for having us here, Riva and Drew. But to all of our guests this morning that came out, we had some early morning guests. Gay Kirby came from up the road to share her story of what happened during the fire and her hope moving forward. We also had some live guests here who were raising funds to help wildlife in the area and such. And so the Wild Ones was their organization. And of course, all the other people that we came across along the way that we're grateful that you talked to us. This is a changed part of the province. You know, this landscape looks different now with the loss of all the trees. Through the show, you might have been hearing the helicopters overhead still tending to the area. And just the road has been an area where they've been sort of clearing and then taking trees down. And then there's a giant wood chipper up the way on Wendigo where they're, spitting the wood chips back out. So this landscape in the beautiful boreal forest will also be something that's changing here in this part of Manitoba due to wildfire. But big thanks for folks for having us here. Before we do an official wrap of the show, now it's time for your 8:30 newscast with Heather Wells.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, a mix of sun and clouds, and that's pretty much how it'll be today. Right now, we are 17, a high today of 25. It'll be hazy, and there is a risk of an afternoon thunderstorm. An out-of-control wildfire just outside the northern community of Wildboden has prompted officials to declare a local state of emergency. Wildboden's mayor, Reg Mead, says the state of emergency gives them time to prepare in case they need to quickly evacuate the community.
The whole community is pre-registered for emergency measures, so they have to go into hotels or other places.
At least 50 people have been identified as high-priority evacuees, including those with health issues and families with young children. Mead says community members have been asked to keep their bags packed and to wait for updates. The wildfires burning throughout the province are still impacting the air you breathe. Experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in the short and long term. Christopher Pascoe is an associate professor at the University of Manitoba's Physiology and Pathophysiology Department.
People will usually experience breathlessness, so difficulty breathing, catching your breath. You may notice that you cough more, have more mucus. If you're somebody who has lung disease, asthma, COPD, you may find that you need to use your medication more or that it's not as effective.
Pascoe says when a special air quality statement or a warning is in effect, as they are today, people with health concerns should stay indoors in a well-ventilated space, wear N95 masks, and monitor air quality. Well, people are starting to line the streets in Ottawa behind the barricades in front of Parliament Hill. The King and Queen are set to begin a short parade in a horse-drawn carriage. King Charles formally opens Parliament today by reading the speech from the throne, a rare event for Canada's monarch. The royal couple wrap up their royal visit later today. Now, this is the first time Canada's head of state opens Parliament since 1977. In Winnipeg, Callum Morrison is a longtime follower of the royal family.
In a time like this where Canada is really trying to see what its place in the world is, particularly with changing alliances and stuff happening with the States, I just think it's a good time for us to reflect on what our shared traditions and values are.
Morrison says he hopes Canadians appreciate this historic moment. Now, CBC News will be there when King Charles III delivers the speech from the throne. You can join Your World Tonight's Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen of CBC Radio's The House for special coverage. It all begins at 10 o'clock this morning right here on CBC Radio 1. Winnipeg's mayor does not plan to revoke an award recently given to a local business owner. Ramsey Zeed was honored with the Mayor's Business Improvement Zone Award earlier this month, but Councillor Sherry Rowlands wants the award rescinded. Her concern is social media posts and a video which she says were reshared on Instagram by the Canadian Palestinian Association of Manitoba. Zeed is president of that group. Winnipeg police confirmed the video is being investigated. Mayor Scott Gillingham says there is no room for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia in this city, but he makes no mention of revoking the award, noting it was given to a business, not an individual.
The nomination was put forward by the Business Association, of which she is a board member. So the councillor should talk to her fellow board members. It was her biz organization that put forward the nomination. She should speak to her fellow board members. She should speak to the executive director of that biz zone.
Rowland says she is troubled by the mayor's remarks. Meanwhile, Zeed says he is seeking legal advice about what Councillor Rowlands wrote to the mayor. Zeed says he's honored to have received the Biz Award. Selkirk's MLA is urging the province to take his concerns seriously about a dangerous intersection in the RM of St. Andrews. Richard Pershot says not only does the intersection of Highways 8 and 67 have poor visibility, speeding is also a concern. He says he has warned the government about it multiple times, but nothing has been done. And last week, an 18-year-old died in a collision at that intersection.
This is a call for action. This is a call for the minister to do something. Just stop ignoring the RM of St. Andrews, stop ignoring the emergency personnel, and stop ignoring myself, who's been sent here on behalf of constituents to actually do something and fix that intersection.
Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor says the government is looking at safety improvements, including adding passing lanes on Highway 8. Stay in step with the news throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Let's say some thank yous to those who worked in the program today. Our special broadcast from Lacabani, Chidi Akuma, associate producer, Donna Carrero, producer, as well as Nellie Gonzalez, show producer, Leif Larson, senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Also to our news center, Heather Wells, Megan Ketcherson, and Joni Nicolo, and our live team. Brad Lillies, who's our amazing YouTube producer. If you watch the show, Abby Adiyemi, who we can't do anything without, who's our senior tech, and then Corey Funk. I don't even know how you do everything you do, Corey. Big thanks to you. But you still have more work to do. So
yes.
So what's happening on the commute?
Yeah, Louise Bridge, keep an eye out there. It's actually still closed. It was supposed to close, reopen yesterday, but it's not. Got a call from someone, and the city says it's supposed to close, or open again, still be closed tomorrow as well. Look for that. Also, northbound Main, right at Port Germain Pioneer, right lane closed due to a collision, or blocked due to a collision. So keep left to get around. That might be a bit backed up.
And Abby, a last word on the weather here.
Warm weather with sun and cloud expected across the province today. We're seeing temperatures around 17 degrees in most regions, warming close to 25. Possible afternoon storms in most of the regions today.
All right. Well, we need that rain. Thank you, Abby. Take care and be well, Manitoba. Really take care and be well, especially in those fire zones. Thank you so much, Lacabani, for having CBC here to try and share your stories. Here's to some hope moving forward, and be safe in those fire zones around the province. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC.